to the history of Microsoft. The year was 1975. Everyone was singing along with Glenn Campbell to Rhinestone Cowboy. A movie starring a fish by a little-known director named Steven Spielberg terrifies and entertains audiences everywhere, and Sony introduced the home video cassette recorder. But that was just the beginning for what was about to happen in the world of communications and technology. On January 1st, 1975, the MITS Altair 8800 appeared on the cover of Popular Electronics, inspiring two young men, Paul Allen and Bill Gates, to develop basic language software for it. Shortly after, on February 1st, 1975, Bill Gates and Paul Allen complete Altair Basic and sell it to their very first customer, MITS of Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is the very first computer language program for a personal computer.
A major milestone for us was when we were walking through Harvard Square one time and saw this Popular Electronics magazine. And it was kind of, in a way, good news, bad news. Here was someone making a computer around this chip in exactly the way that Paul had talked to me, and we thought about what kind of software could be done for it. And it was happening without us. And for all we knew, maybe they had some software people. They were just going to go charge off and do this thing. And so we wrote this company immediately and offered to do a basic for them. And they thought that was interesting. They called back and said, well, you're serious? We have a lot of strange people calling us. Because this article received immense interest. I mean, the idea of a kit computer, even though there was really nothing you could do with it. I mean, there's no teletype hookup in the early days. There's no software for it. All you could do is use these switches, actually use them here, and key things into this front panel, and maybe do a little program that does things in the lights. Or actually, a guy named Steve Dompier discovered that because this bus is unterminated, if you're very clever about the program you run, you can get high frequency emission that can cause a radio to make interesting noises. Now eventually we did get controllers for teletypes and cassette tapes and floppy disks, that kind of thing. But in the early days, it's pretty useless. People just bought it thinking that it would be neat to build a computer. Because we'd never had the chip, just the book from Intel, if we'd made any mistake in terms of how the instructions worked, the thing never would have run. And so Paul was scheduled to fly out to Albuquerque. He decided to go get some sleep. I stayed up all night reading the book to see if we'd miscoded some of the instructions, and finally decided it was all okay, punch out the paper tape, and made sure Paul got that before he went off on his plane. He wrote the bootstrap loader, that is the thing you have to key in to make this computer smart enough to know to go get data off the teletype to read it into memory. He wrote that on the plane on the way out. It was actually 46 bytes, the first one. I eventually wrote one in 17 bytes, but anyway. And he took the basic to MITS. They had a machine they had run with 6K of memory, which for them was a big, big thing. And loaded it up in the paper tape. The first time, for some reason, it didn't work. The second time they loaded in, and it worked. And of course, the simulator, it's very slow because you go through lots of instructions to a single instruction. So actually, the real machine, even though it's such a simple little microprocessor, was faster than our PDP-10 simulator, about 5 times faster. And so to Paul, when it finally came up and it said, okay, actually that first version said ready. Most basics, when they're ready, they say ready. Later, when I was squeezing bytes out, I thought, well, it's faster to print okay, and it's kind of a nice, friendly word, so I shortened it to okay a little later. Anyway, so it came up, said ready, and he typed in a program. Print 2 plus 2, it worked. He had it print out squares and sums and things like that. And he and Ed Roberts, the head of this company, sat there, and they were amazed by, that this thing worked. I mean, Paul was amazed that our part had worked, and Ed was amazed that his hardware worked, and that here it was doing something even useful.
Another month passed and Paul Allen is on the move. On March 1st, the young man from the Northwest joined MITS as Director of Software. And on April 7th, 1975, the headline of the first edition of MITS Computer Notes reads, Altair Basic Up and Running. Wasting no time, on July 1st, Bill Gates and Paul Allen officially shipped BASIC version 2.0 in both 4K and 8K editions.
Yeah, this BASIC was the first real piece of software ever written for a PC. And it became, for the first generation of PCs, the thing that unlocked the power that was there, because although some people did machine language programming, 90% of what got done was done in BASIC, and 90% of that was Microsoft BASIC, the descendants of this tape that got onto all those early machines.
Just a few weeks later, Paul Allen and Bill Gates signed a licensing agreement with MITS regarding the BASIC interpreter. It was the year 1975. The average cost of bread was 69 cents, gas was 53 cents a gallon, and the partnership, yet to be officially named Microsoft, declared yearly sales totaling $16,005. But childhood friends Paul Allen and Bill Gates had just begun the adventure of a lifetime, and soon they'd be taking the rest of the world with them. Welcome to the history of Microsoft. It was the year 1976. A Viking spacecraft shows the first pictures of the rocky desert terrain on Mars. Hotel California topped the charts, giving the Eagles one of the biggest selling albums of all time, and the United States government issued the first of the now obscure $2 bill. And on February 3rd, 1976, Bill Gates took a stand by writing and publishing a letter in Computer Notes. He accused hobbyists of stealing software and pointed out that if they didn't start paying for the product, there would be no incentive to make software available to them. He then added his address and suggested they pay up or make suggestions. This made Bill Gates the first of many programmers to bring the piracy of software and its effect on the industry to light.
In a certain sense, if things hadn't worked out, I could always go back to school. I was officially on leave. I didn't have like a family to feed or anything, but I was doing the payroll, writing the taxes, doing the contracts, figuring out how to price the software. In fact, I was business oriented enough that I wrote a letter about software piracy, sort of complaining that a lot of these computer groups weren't paying for their software. And that really became a cause celeb at the time of, is it fair that this guy's asking for money? Should we pay for this stuff? MITS was very controversial because some of the memory boards they had been shipping didn't work, and they'd been late with a lot of things. So some people felt like it was a way of getting back at MITS to take the BASIC. And we had the first computer convention. There people came in. So Microsoft was a business from the beginning. Not that we had any clear view that it would ever be a large business, but I had to pay these friends I'd hired. At a minimum, I had to make enough money to write their paycheck, and if I got enough confidence we could sell a lot more, then I'd be able to hire in even more people to get ahead, to be the leader in doing lots of products that could share code with each other and take the market.
A few months later, on March 27th, Albuquerque, New Mexico hosted the first annual World Altair Computer Convention with an opening address from Bill Gates. The very next month, Microsoft was proud to hire their first official full-time employee. His name was Mark McDonald. Meanwhile, in California, a loan for $5,000 was granted to Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, who were running a small company known as Apple. With emerging interest in technology, new magazines Byte, Computer Graphics and Art, and Dr. Dobbs' Journal of Computer Calisthenics and Orthodontia hit the stands. And Microsoft's first advertisement appeared in the July issue of Digital Design magazine. That summer, Shugart developed a small 5¼ floppy disk drive for microcomputers at a price of $390. A few months later, on September 1st, Microsoft shows signs of growth by leasing office space in Albuquerque, New Mexico's Two-Park Central Tower building. Now, with an official Microsoft workspace, in November 1976, Paul Allen decided to resign from MITS to join Microsoft full-time. And over the course of 1976, the name Microsoft is variously written. It wasn't until the trade name registration in November that the company settled on how to spell its own name. And Microsoft was finally registered in the state of New Mexico. 1976 was a big year in the US as it celebrated its bicentennial, and Microsoft's first year, officially known as Microsoft, ended with an office, an employee headcount totaling 6 people, and revenues adding up to more than $22,000. But having an office name was just the beginning for this new company in New Mexico called Microsoft. Welcome to the history of Microsoft. It was the year 1977. The much-awaited space opera Star Wars became an instant success with robot co-stars C-3PO and R2-D2. New York City celebrated the completion of their new landmark, the World Trade Center, and sadly, the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, died at age 42. It was the year 1977, and while the U.S. began 4 years with its 39th president, on February 3, 1977, Paul Allen and Bill Gates finally executed an official partnership. That summer, Microsoft introduced its second language product, Fortran 80, at a price of $500. And the Tandy Corporation announced the TRS-80 Model 1 microcomputer with a 4K memory retailing for $600. Meanwhile, Apple, another small tech company, released their second version of a personal computer called the Apple II. And the market was growing as Commodore business machines hit the market with the Personal Electronic Transactor Computer, otherwise known as PET. A few months later, on September 13th, Microsoft received new computers from Commodore, Radio Shack, and Texas Instruments.
The Altair Basic comes out in 75. And the next big wave is a set of 3 machines that come out in 77. The TRS-80, the Apple II that we have over here that came out actually without the discs at first, and a machine called the Commodore PET. And those were low cost, and yet they weren't kits or anything. They came out prepackaged, and they looked like they would really ignite the volume in the market. And all 3 of them went out and did very well. Several of them, when they first shipped, had basics that the company themselves did. This had a level 1 basic that actually Steve Leininger enhanced off of Lee Chim Wang's Tiny Basic. But they knew it was pretty inadequate, and so they licensed the basic from us that was built into all these machines thereafter, and they called it level 2 basic, and we even left some hooks in there so we could sell a basic called level 3 basic that went even further. So Radio Shack, with its distribution and its name, set the market on fire. Apple, because they really went out to computer dealers and did a good job, far better than people like the MITS guys and the Insight guys were doing. They really thought of this as a market where they had to develop the channel and do new things. And the Commodore machine, the PET, was actually the most aggressively priced machine and had some very innovative things. So these machines drove the market, and eventually, by a year after they were out, all of them had our basic built in. So you could even move programs back and forth between these machines because of the compatibility that we had built in there.
With new momentum and equipment, on September 26th, Microsoft expanded to 3 more offices in their Albuquerque building.
Well, Paul and I were the founders, but we, during the time we were in Albuquerque, which was from 75 to 78, ended up with about 16 people. This is a picture we took towards the end of that time, myself and Paul. This is Gordon Letwin, who had worked and did the Heath Basic, Benton Harbor Basic, and then he was upset when they were licensing my Basic instead. He came to work for us and did some incredible work. Mark McDonald, actually our first employee. Anyway, these were the, other than Andrea, who wrote the manuals, and Marla, who helped keep the books. I was the sales department, contract department, and everybody else here were programmers. We all wrote an immense amount of code. You know, these were exciting years. The number of new machines coming out were pretty dramatic. Our offices were here in fancy Albuquerque, up on the 8th floor of this building here. Albuquerque was great. There weren't many distractions there, but was hard to recruit people as we tried to grow.
It was the year 1977. The median income in the United States was over $13,000, and Microsoft's revenue went up significantly this year to over $380,000. But a headcount of 9 and a few more offices was just the tip of the iceberg for a company that was just getting started. Welcome to the history of Microsoft. It was the year 1978. Shadow Dancing by Andy Gibb topped the Billboard charts for the year. The United States banned chlorofluorocarbons as spray propellants for damaging the ozone layer, and in vitro fertilization found its first success with the birth of baby girl Louise Brown in the UK. But in 1978, back in New Mexico, Microsoft worked tirelessly, and on April 11th they announced the COBOL 80, which conformed to the 1974 ANSI standards for 8080, Z80, and 8085 microprocessors.
We always knew that we didn't want to have a single product that was a dominant product. We wanted to hire in more software people and have a full product line. In a sense, one of the earliest things we decided to do was to make available on the microprocessor everything that had been available on the mini computer. And that's why we did the languages, COBOL, assembler, all the normal tools that you would expect to be able to do native software development. But it was clear that as an individual machine, there were some things that you would use that you didn't need on a mini computer or mainframe. And already there were other software companies. Although we had been the very first microcomputer software company, a company named WordStar had emerged. One of the marketing people from IMSI, after IMSI wasn't doing so well, went out and focused that company around the WordStar word processor. Actually, the company was originally called MicroPro. And Seymour Rubenstein ran that. There was Michael Schreier with Electric Pencil. And we had come out with games very early on, so-called adventure game that are running here on this TRS-80. And this is an early box that we used in our packaging. We called it, that group, Microsoft Consumer Products at the time. And one of the products that really got us kicked off in doing new things was we made a card that plugged into the Apple II with the little Z80, a microprocessor that succeeded the 8080 on it. And so it let you run all the business applications that were coming out in the CPM80 world on this machine, which was very high volume. And that was a big success and let us grow our retail group and even go out and license some products like Flight Simulator and many others that defined a whole new avenue for us. We never saw ourselves as limited in terms of what kind of software we wanted to do. As long as it was software where development talent was the key to doing it well, and that it could be sold in fairly high volumes, which in those days weren't nearly what they are today, we decided that might be a good product for Microsoft.
On November 1st, Microsoft went worldwide, establishing ASCII Microsoft, their first sales office in Japan. Just 6 days later, Microsoft announced a random access line-oriented text editor for 8080 and Z80 systems called Microsoft Edit 80. This is the first microcomputer editor with random line access to floppy disk files. And Microsoft isn't the only company making strides in the tech industry. In 1978, Intel introduced the 8086 chip, starting the 16-bit microprocessor family. Even politics wanted a piece, and in a meeting with computer industry officials, Senator Al Gore of Tennessee coined the now popular phrase, information superhighway. Less than a month later, on December 1st, 1978, Microsoft announced the fastest macro assembler in the microcomputer market, the Macro 80 for 8080 Z80. This program assembled over 1,000 lines per minute. That same day, Microsoft also announced the availability of Fortran 80 compiler for TRS-80. But the new products were not the only big announcements. Northwest natives Bill Gates and Paul Allen made their plan to move Microsoft back home to the Northwest.
We were in Albuquerque until the end of 1978, and that takes us up to where we really completed all the languages we wanted to do in most of our 8-bit software work. So as we were moving up to Seattle in 1979, we had some custom extensions to do for some Japanese machines of that time, like an NEC machine and an Oki machine. But a lot of our resource was already focused on 8086 development software. We just saw that as the coming thing. But moving to Seattle let us expand our personnel quite a bit, and that's really where that's when the multi-plan, the spreadsheet development started. That's when Microsoft Word started. In particular, we hired a number of key people like Charles Simoni, who had been a founder of the Xerox Palo Alto Research Labs and had shown us the Alto computer and talked to us about graphical interface. And we shared a common view that low-cost microprocessors would be doing that, and got him on board to help us write applications that would eventually become very graphical applications.
It was the year 1978. Now with 13 employees strong and fueled by $566 worth of Coca-Cola, Microsoft ended the year breaking the $1 million mark with total sales of $1,355,000. Microsoft, at only 3 years old, was already showing up as a $1 million company. But could they prove they were more than just basic? Welcome to the history of Microsoft. The year was 1979. Margaret Thatcher was the first woman to be elected to Prime Minister in Britain, the Seattle Supersonics won the NBA championship, and Sony introduced the first portable Walkman. But music wasn't the only thing on the move. On January 1st, 1979, Microsoft relocated from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and headed closer to home for Bill Gates and Paul Allen to Bellevue, Washington. Now, while Microsoft settles into their new place, they're still busy building, and on March 12th, they announced an M6800 version of BASIC. Less than 1 month later, on April 4th, the 8080 version of Microsoft BASIC is the very first microprocessor software product to win the ICP $1 Million Award. But there's little time to stop and celebrate. Microsoft BASIC, currently in use in over 200,000 Z80 and 8080 installations, has just been released in a new version for the 8086 16-bit microprocessor.
Well, the key to the move to the business market was getting a machine with more capability and getting standard. Although you could exchange some basic programs between these 8-bit machines, if you went and used any of the advanced features, then you were just tied to that one machine. So it wasn't all that economical to write lots of software for these machines. And the 8-bit machines maxed out at 64K of memory. And even though, when I wrote BASIC in 4K, 64K seemed like a lot, as we started taking on more and more challenges, it just wasn't going to be enough. And since we were tracking what Intel was doing very closely and building the next generation chip, their 8086 family, including the very low cost part called the 8088, we knew that 16-bit computing was on its way. And we saw that it could be a good business machine, and we decided to focus a lot of early work on that Intel chip. In fact, it was that decision that forced us to do the soft card, because we had so many products for the Intel chip, and the question was, should we spread those products over to other 8-bit chips, like the 6502 that runs in here, or should we immediately move up and do 16-bit software? And I said, no, we're going to do 16-bit software. Everybody was a little bit disappointed because it meant we wouldn't be able to sell onto these machines. And that's when Paul invented the idea of the soft card, so that we could actually take our Intel software and run it on this machine and at the same time go ahead and devote our resources to being way ahead of everybody else in developing software for the 8086.
Continuing with the momentum, that August, Microsoft announced the availability of Microsoft Basic Compiler for 8080 and Z80 CP/M systems. Now, Microsoft isn't the only tech company making news in 1979. VisiCalc, the first electronic spreadsheet program, debuts at the West Coast Computer Fair, and the first compact discs are created by Sony in Japan and Philips in the Netherlands, thanks to joint licensing. Now, as Microsoft enters the holidays, they begin to make more international news. On November 29, 1979, Microsoft expanded the European market by opening a new representative, Vector Microsoft, located in Belgium. 1 month later, on December 1st, the most powerful BASIC written for the TRS-80, Level 3 BASIC, was introduced by Microsoft Consumer Products, their new consumer software development and marketing division. It was the year 1979. Convicted felon Patty Hearst was released from prison, thanks to Jimmy Carter, and at Microsoft, all the work and risks were paying off. Now, with 28 employees, Microsoft ended the year 1979 with sales exceeding $2 million. Now, with a new home, an ICP $1 Million Award, and a handful of new talent, Microsoft prepares to enter the new decade and plans on proving that it's here to stay. Welcome to the history of Microsoft. It was the year 1980. Mount St. Helens erupted in Washington State, covering the surrounding areas in ash. Ordinary People, starring Mary Tyler Moore, won the Oscar for Best Picture, and President Carter declared a U.S. boycott of the Olympic Games in protest of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And in 1980, Microsoft was ready to start the new decade with a bang. And on the first day of the year, consumers were in awe as Microsoft announced its first consumer-oriented application software, Typing Tutor. A few months later, on April 2nd, Microsoft introduced the Z80 Soft Card, a circuit board that plugs into the Apple II computer, allowing Apple users to run CP/M applications with only minor modifications. Then in June, Microsoft gets a new hire, a charismatic young man named Steve Ballmer. He's responsible for handling operations, including personnel, finance, and the legal areas of the ever-growing business.
About a year after that, I hired a friend of mine from college, Steve Ballmer, who was very good at hiring people. And so he could see that we had more projects that we wanted to do than we could. And he was able to almost double the size of the company in people every year for the next 5 years. So it really started to change in character, where I had written a high percentage of the code myself until we got to Seattle and reviewed everything that people were doing, to the point where we were setting up a lot of autonomous teams and having to do a lot more in terms of what was our methodology and how did we interview people, just to stay up with all the projects we were going after. When Steve came in, I was spending more time with him because the business side was important, managing and organizing, and what were we going to do about international. And so it was great that Steve was smart enough and personable enough that even though he didn't have a technical background, the programmers accepted him. That was very rare. We really didn't believe non-programmers should manage programmers. And we didn't do that until I think it was 83 before Steve actually directly managed developers. But the developers accepted him early on because he was smart, he would sit and listen to them, understand the things that they really liked to do. And so that fit in. I got a lot of benefit out of Steve going around and always knowing what people were thinking about.
2 months later, on August 25th, Microsoft announced a portable Unix-based operating system for 16-bit microprocessors called Xenix OS. Now, while Microsoft was busy going portable, Apple was busy going public. With 4.6 million shares, it was the largest offering since Ford Motor Company went public in 1956. In October, IBM hired Paul Allen and Bill Gates to create an operating system for a new personal computer. Microsoft took the deal and bought the rights for a simple operating system developed by Tim Patterson at Seattle Computer Products to use as a basis for the new code. In addition to hiring Microsoft, IBM allowed Paul Allen and Bill Gates to keep the marketing rights to the operating system known as DOS. In 1980, computer software hit high gear. There was Olympic Decathlon, the game, M-Sort, and RAM-Card, memory expander for Apple II. It was the year 1980. Microsoft employed 40 people and ended the year with sales totaling $8 million. In 5 short years, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, along with their growing team, turned a small business into a huge success, and the new decade offered many new opportunities for the company slowly becoming a household name. Welcome to the history of Microsoft. The year was 1981. John Lennon and Yoko Ono won a Grammy for Best Album with Double Fantasy. The top-grossing film was Raiders of the Lost Ark with $115 million. And Ronald Reagan took the oath as the 40th President of the United States of America. And for Microsoft, 1981 would prove to be a stellar year filled with enormous growth. On April 9, 1981, Microsoft holds the first semi-annual company meeting in the newly built Bellevue Athletic Club. And a few months later, on June 25th, Microsoft reorganizes into a privately held corporation, with Bill Gates as president and chairman of the board and Paul Allen as executive vice president. Microsoft becomes Microsoft Incorporated, an incorporated business in the state of Washington. But Microsoft isn't the only company making strides in the tech industry. Osborne Computer introduces the Osborne One. It's the first portable microcomputer. And in world news, Pope John Paul II is wounded by a gunman. And on May 2nd, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control published a report which officially announces the start of the AIDS epidemic. On August 12, 1981, IBM introduces its personal computer, MS-DOS version 1.0, plus BASIC, COBOL, Pascal, and other Microsoft products. This is Microsoft's entry into the operating systems business. Included in the IBM-compatible list of software is a game newly adapted to the PC. It's called Microsoft Adventure.
How easy was it to get information on what was coming ahead? Were people open in those days, or were they pretty secretive?
Well, there was no secrecy at all, at least as far as I could detect. Some of the computer shows, like the West Coast Computer Fair, everybody in the industry would be there and sit down, and there was so much to do. We were overlapping each other some, and there was some good rivalry, but not in a sense that people were keeping lots of secrets about what they were up to. And it was a very exciting business at that time. Intel was a customer for our BASIC. They'd come out and asked us to do some custom work, and I remember telling them I could do it in 2 weeks, and they said, don't say that, don't say that. Say 4 months, say something reasonable. And it turned out it took 4 weeks to do, because actually configuring their system was so hard. But we'd gotten to know Intel, and we're talking about where the chips were going. It was a very small group that sort of shared this secret. In fact, Ted Nelson gave a speech at one of the West Coast Computer Fairs about how we were going to overthrow all the big computer companies, and we really knew that it was power to the individual, and there was a little bit of a kind of a minority feel that we had to advance this cause, and eventually everybody would realize we were right about what was going on with these machines.
On October 1st, 1981, Microsoft continues to expand, and the Microsoft building, the Northup building, located on Northup Way in Bellevue, Washington, is leased. And this move proved to be a creative one as well. Rumor has it that at one point, a programmer would name a portion of his Windows code after the drive-in restaurant Burger Master, which could easily be seen from the new Northup location, as it was the first thing he saw when he looked out of his window. As Microsoft rolled into the holidays, it announced it had signed a letter of intent to enter a second source agreement with Santa Cruz Operation Incorporated for the Xenix operating system. The year 1981 ended with sales totaling over $17 million for Microsoft, and Microsoft saw the hire of some notable employees, including Jeff Rakes, Tandy Trower, Chris Peters, and the 100th employee, Ellen Aycock. Reaching 100 employees is a milestone for any company, but for Microsoft, things are about to get much, much bigger. Welcome to the history of Microsoft. The year was 1982. The first artificial heart was implanted into a human for the first time. Princess Grace of Monaco died from injuries suffered in a car accident, and Waiting for a Girl Like You by Foreigner was topping the charts. But music and royalty weren't the only things making headlines. In March of 1982, Microsoft UK is incorporated, becoming the first official international subsidiary for Microsoft. And in June, there's a changing of the guard. Well, sort of. James C. Town is appointed President and Chief Operating Officer of Microsoft. In July, he took over all responsibilities from Bill Gates, who will assume the title of Executive Vice President, responsible for all development activities. Bill Gates also remained Chairman of the Board. Later that month, Microsoft got a new look, as they announced a new corporate logo, new packaging, and a comprehensive set of retail dealer support materials. Later that summer, Microsoft became a registered trademark in the US and acquired a fax machine for in-house use. It was a Panafax 1200. Microsoft's local area network, MyLAN, is now fully functional, linking all of Microsoft's in-house development computers, many of which are running Xenix. Now, this system will simplify email delivery on site. And to help simplify it even further, Bill Gates became Bill G. On August 1st, 1982, Microsoft Multiplan version 1 for MS-DOS ships.
Well, our BASIC was fairly deep. The BASIC they first put in this machine was really, really limited. It was, it wasn't going to be expandable, and they wanted to put on graphics, they wanted to put on a disk, they wanted to have sound, and we knew how to do those things. We went in and showed them we could help them design new machines, really work in partnership with them, and do it even less expensively than they could, trying to manage software development themselves. In the case of Apple, Wozniak had done the integer BASIC, and he was playing around thinking about doing a floating point BASIC. I don't know why he never got around to it, but they knew they needed one, and so they had Jobs and Randy Wigington came out, talked to us, and I put the cassette extensions in, integrated into their ROM, and that became what was called AppleSoft BASIC. In terms of the Commodore PET, they started with us from the very beginning because we helped Chuck Peddle, who was a Commodore at that time, really think about the design of the machine, adding lots of fun characters to the character set, things like smiley faces and suit symbols. That was the first machine we did that had this wild extended character set, and all these machines started out using cassette-based storage, where we could store about 1,200 baud worth of data on these cassette tapes. So this was really a generation of machines. These were the popular 8-bit machines. There was another type of 8-bit machine that was a little higher end, that were the CPM80 machines, all of which ran this operating system from Digital Research. And we wrote our languages to run on top of that. That was Gary Kildall's company. And that really defines the 8-bit era of computing. I mean, there were some refinements, like we can see here that Radio Shack built a portable version of their computer, and this is the Osborne computer. That's actually a CPM based computer. And it was, this is an attempt at portability in this 8-bit era. We're actually running on the this machine here, one of our first applications. We were broadening out by now into a lot more than just BASIC. We had a portfolio of languages, but we also had a spreadsheet, and we were about to come out with a word processor. So this is the screen appearance of the spreadsheet called Multiplan. It's kind of an obscure footnote in history because VisiCalc that came before it, the real creator of that category, did incredibly well in the Apple II. And we designed our spreadsheet to work on 8-bit machines and the next generation. But a 1, 2, 3, which was only designed for the 16-bit machines, got ahead in terms of features. And so Multiplan, although contributed a lot of good ideas, actually was essentially passed by with the work that Lotus did on 1, 2, 3.
In October of 1982, Microsoft took a personal hit as Paul Allen was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which was localized and in a very treatable form. He was put on a limited work schedule while undergoing treatments, and although his treatment was successful, he would resign from Microsoft in 1983. While Microsoft was busy releasing Typing Tutor 2 for Apple II, Softcar Premium, and Flight Simulator for MS-DOS, major news was happening around the world. There was the Tylenol tampering scare, where 7 people died from taking cyanide-laced Tylenol capsules. Johnson & Johnson quickly recalled over 30 million bottles. 1982 also gave us the beginnings of Diet Coke and equal artificial sweetener. In less than 4 months after IBM introduced the PC, Time magazine named the computer as the Man of the Year. It was the year 1982, and year-end sales totaled over $24 million. The 1982 calendar year employee headcount was 220 people. But things for Microsoft were about to take a dramatic turn, as one of its co-founders makes a life-altering decision. Welcome to the history of Microsoft. The year was 1983. Sally Ride, age 32, was the first U.S. woman astronaut in space. The final episode of MASH aired with over 120 million viewers, and Kodak produced 8 million disc cameras during the first year of production. But the year 1983 proved to be one of dramatic changes for Microsoft. On February 18th, Paul Allen resigned as Microsoft's executive vice president, but remained on the board of directors. A few weeks later, on March 9, 1983, Microsoft introduced MS-DOS 2.0. Now, as they rolled into the month of May, Microsoft introduced the Microsoft Mouse. It was a low-cost handheld pointing device for use with the IBM PC, as well as any other MS-DOS-based personal computer.
I mean, for the first time, we hired a salesperson, and we hired a finance person, and so we had some new categories of skill that were things that I had essentially done, but that were more demanding now. We hired in Vern Rayburn to run this consumer products effort, to think about packaging and pricing and promotion and how to get those things out there. And he hired quite a few people in to help him work on that area. So the development group, which has always been sort of the core of Microsoft, there it was the same kind of person coming on board, but the company had more aspects. In fact, we started our activities in Japan and in Europe, and so we were getting people in many different places, even though development we kept all here in Seattle. Our hiring was always focused on people right out of school. We had a few key hires like Charles Simoni that came in with experience, but most of our developers, we decided we wanted them to come with clear minds, not polluted by some other approach, and learn the way that we liked to develop software and put the kind of energy into it that we thought was key.
On November 29, 1983, Microsoft shipped its full-featured word processing program, Word for MS-DOS 1, and provided a free demonstration copy to subscribers of the PC World Software Review. A few months later, Microsoft Press, a trade book publishing division specializing in computer books, was formed. Microsoft Press expected to publish 30 to 35 books in its first year. And the products just kept coming. And in November 1983, Microsoft unveiled Windows, an extension of the MS-DOS operating system that provided a graphical operating environment. Now, Windows featured a window management capability that allowed a user to view unrelated application programs simultaneously. It also provided the capability to transfer data from one application program to another. Windows wouldn't actually ship until 2 years later. As the year came to a close, the first international subsidiaries to connect to Microsoft Email were in Europe, including the UK, France, and Germany. In 1983, the world population was 4.6 billion. The median household income was roughly $20,000, and the cost of a first-class stamp, 20 cents. But could the company continue its success with the absence of co-founder Paul Allen? Well, only time would tell. Welcome to the history of Microsoft. The year was 1984. Sitcoms Kate and Ally and The Cosby Show premiered to both critical and popular acclaim. In medicine, Baby Faye received a transplanted baboon heart, and the Supreme Court okay's home TV recording in its ruling on the Sony case. And at Microsoft, 1984 began with a bang, when on January 24th, 1984, Microsoft and Apple Computer announced the new Apple Macintosh computer and Microsoft's custom-designed productivity software for it. Macintosh's interface, combined with Microsoft software, Multiplan, Chart, Word, File, and Basic, provides a powerful and functional environment for all users. On March 4th, 1984, Microsoft joined forces with Spectra Video and 4 Japanese firms to establish a hardware-software compatibility standard based on the popular Z80 8-bit microcomputer. The standard, called MSX, made available a new set of standard specifications so diverse software programs would be compatible with low-cost home computers from different manufacturers. MSX was developed primarily for the Japanese market as the first unified format in Japan for software or hardware. It was never adapted for sale in the US.
There were other people. Kazuhiko Nishi, who was a very close friend of mine from Japan, really taught me about the Japanese market, got us doing the very first Japanese personal computer, the NEC PC-8000, and many of those other projects. He's a visionary, very energetic, almost overly optimistic about where things can go, and had started a lot of the early computer magazines in Japan and worked with us for a long time. Because it was a fast-moving business and all that, we worked very long hours, and we'd go out to movies together. Everybody knew each other awfully well, and up until 1981, Paul and I had owned the whole company, except we'd shared a little bit of it with Steve. And there wasn't much pressure to do anything differently than that. But then around 81, we decided to share some of the ownership in the form of options, and actually brought some of the really strong contributors into that program.
A few weeks later, Microsoft Press introduced its first 2 titles, Carrie Lu's The Apple Macintosh book and Peter Norton's Exploring the IBM PC Junior Home Computer. On March 29, 1984, Microsoft expanded when they created a new hardware and peripherals division dedicated to developing and marketing hardware products that complement Microsoft's software product line. On August 14th, IBM chose Xenix and MS-DOS for its new generation personal computer, the IBM PC-AT. Come September, Microsoft was on the move. They scheduled a meeting with Redmond City officials to discuss relocating the company to the Evergreen Place development in 1985. Now, once again, Microsoft released a plethora of products, including Project 1.0, Multiplan for Mac 1.0, Serial Mouse 2.5, Softcard 2, and C Compiler 2.0. The 1984 fiscal year-end sales totaled $97 million, and the 1984 fiscal year employee headcount was now 860 people. As the year ends, Microsoft gears up for 1985, where Windows will be delivered. was 1985. Symbolics.com was the first domain name registered. The wreck of the Titanic was discovered after 73 years, and the CD-ROM format was created by Philips in collaboration with Sony. And at Microsoft, 1985 marks the company's 10-year anniversary. It also marks the release of Microsoft Mac Enhancer Expansion System, a new hardware product designed to open up the Apple Macintosh computer to a wide range of IBM-compatible peripherals. On February 1st, 1985, Ida Cole is named the new Vice President of Applications, responsible for planning, development, and marketing for the application software product line. She was previously with Apple Computer. On May 3rd, Rich McIntosh was called to the Canadian Department of Agriculture to retrieve his Microsoft mouse after it was quarantined for 4 weeks. On August 9th, 1985, Microsoft announced that the company broke ground on a new Microsoft World Headquarters in Redmond, Washington, that's scheduled for completion by mid-1986. In other world news, the Live Aid concerts in Philadelphia and London raised almost $250 million for African famine relief. And Coca-Cola introduced New Coke, which was one of the biggest marketing disasters of the 20th century. On August 22, 1985, Microsoft signed an agreement with IBM for joint development of operating systems and other systems software products. In early September, Microsoft selected the Republic of Ireland as the site of its first production facility outside the US for software products to be sold in the European market. And on September 30th, Microsoft announced the shipment of Excel for the Macintosh to retail stores. Excel was a powerful, full-featured microcomputer spreadsheet that combined business graphics with an on-sheet database. As the year came to a close on November 20th, 1985, Microsoft shipped the retail version of Windows, an operating system that extends the features of the MS-DOS. The long wait between announcement and shipment prompts Microsoft to stage the launch as a roast event hosted by John Borak of PC Magazine.
Actually, there's been a lot of change for me since Windows was introduced. Actually, the time we started Windows development, I was the financial guy. I was the guy who reviewed the investment decision. I said, okay, 6 man-years, no problem. 1 disk, no problem. We're now 80 man-years later, and we're selling a $99 product with 5 disks. They moved me into a new job. I hit some tough times, though. We got into the delay. The letter went out. I was despondent. Things were bad. I had no respect from anybody. I was even trying to sell my house. I ran a little listing in the Microsoft newsletter for my house. The editor of our internal company newsletter chose to editorialize. Ballmer's house has windows. Ballmer doesn't. It was bad. Things got worse and worse and worse. By April of this year, it was bad. Even Bill, who I've known for a long time, and he normally is willing to give me just a little bit of slack, Bill called me into his office. It was a fury of frustration. He starts screaming at me. This was like Bill's 99th Windows bug he had discovered. And I tried to explain to him, hey, Bill, it's 1 in 100 million. Most people don't hit the A, D, G, K, and S keys simultaneously at 2 in the afternoon. They'll never see the names of the development group pop up on that screen, not once. Bill was not to be placated, though. He said to me, Ballmer, ship this thing before the snow falls, or you'll end your career here doing Windows. I walked back to my office. I called our PR group. I said, look, let's let the cat out of the bag. This thing is going to ship before the snow falls. They did it. Last Sunday, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in 10 years, it snowed in Seattle. At Microsoft, we're damn proud to have done Windows. Thanks for coming.
And I would like to introduce, and I feel privileged to do so, Mr. Bill Gates.
To dream the impossible dream.
I'd really like to thank everybody who came here tonight. First, I'd like to thank Steve, because Steve's really been a part of the whole process. We used to have a lot of meetings where we'd sit and say, look, we just got to cut features. We just got to cut features. We got to get this thing out. What can we do? And so Steve's kind of a non-technical guy. So he came up with this idea that we could rename the thing Microsoft Window. And we would have shipped that a long time ago. Actually, I'm the guy who gets to be real serious and talk about the fact that this really is a great product. We put our hearts and souls into it. We didn't hesitate at any time to put more people onto it and really make it what we want it to be. And I'm going to show you real quickly a couple highlights from the product. This is the user-friendly shell that you first interact with.
A little different color.
Yeah, and you can run old applications. Here we're running 1, 2, 3, doing everything we normally do. We can bring up a chart, if you can see it, and we just put that chart in the clipboard and went back to Windows. And then we pulled up a paint program, and we used the paste command to pull in this chart. So there it is, the whole chart. You can scroll around, see the whole thing. And you can use the paint program to touch it up. So we're going to use that little bucket, pour some paint in those slices, make this thing look really good. And once we're done with the paint program, we can stick that window on the right and go over and use the shell to start up the write program. So the write program comes up, we can type a letter, and this write program is actually included in with the retail package. Now here we're going to use copy and paste to move that graph over into the document. So there it is in the rich text document. The next thing we want to show is the graphics and running multiple things at the same time. There it is with some boxes. Very, very high utility value there. A nice three-dimensional cube, and look, you can do these all at the same time. Palette, full screen cube, and here we're using tiling. We're moving things around. You never lose anything. It automatically resizes. We've got a clock up there. We can put the clock down in the icon area. It's multitasking, all right. Those programmers never forget. More and more. We got a calendar program that uses the graphical interface. We got a card file. We got a terminal program. Here we're running the terminal program, the card file on the side. It's all here, all running in 640K and totally flexible. No, this is real time.
80 megahertz.
Now here we have 8 copies of 1, 2, 3, and Multiplan, and DBase, and multiple copies of all these things. And we can run them, move them around, look at the data. All the old applications run. And now, the retail package of Microsoft Windows. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's here.
'85 saw the release of a variety of products from Microsoft, including MS-DOS 2.0, Chart for Macintosh, Microsoft Access 1.0, Business Communication App, not the database, COBOL 2.1, Mac Enhancer 2.0, Basic 2.1 Interpreter for the Mac, Word for Networks, Quick Basic Compiler for Logo and for Mac. In 1985, the game Tetris was written, the domain name system DNS was created, and Microsoft celebrated its 10th anniversary with sales figures of more than $140 million. But this was the last year the company called Microsoft would be remaining so very private. The year was 1986, and Martin Luther King Day was celebrated as a federal holiday for the very first time. The Legend of Zelda premiered on the Nintendo video game system, and Halley's Comet returned for another near-Earth appearance. For Microsoft, 1986 proved to be a slimming one, as a January survey of lunchroom consumption revealed that Diet Coke topped the employee popularity list. On January 30th, Microsoft and Santa Cruz Operation announced new agreements and joint marketing plans concerning Microsoft Networks for Xenix. In February, His Royal Highness Prince Charles of Great Britain visits the Microsoft showroom at the Infomart in Dallas. He compliments Jerry Rutenberg, Vice President of Retail, and Shelley Jones on the color and graphics of the Microsoft Windows demonstration given to him by Jan Josephs. And later that month, Microsoft moved to its new corporate campus, buildings 1 through 4 in Redmond, Washington. On March 13, 1986, Microsoft stock went public at $21 per share, rising to $28 per share by the end of the first trading day. The initial public offering raised $61 million. In other tech news, Compaq Computer Corp makes the Fortune 500 faster than any other company ever. Apple Computer introduced the Macintosh Plus and LaserWriter printer, and Teddy Ruxpin, a talking bear with a built-in microchip, brings computer technology to preschool. Back at Microsoft on April 22, 1986, direct shipment of software to the Republic of South Africa was stopped, and the relationship with the local distributor was terminated due to the South African government's policy of apartheid. Previously, support for anti-apartheid activities had been demonstrated by the donation of all profits earned from South Africa software sales to the American Friends Service Committee. On May 9, 1986, Microsoft Press releases Windows, the official guide to Microsoft's operating environment by Nancy Andrews. This is the first book available and is a complete introduction to the basic operations of the Microsoft Windows environment, the 7 Windows desktop applications, and using Windows Write and Windows Paint. On July 3rd, IBM announced the PC Convertible, which uses 3.5-inch discs. Consequently, all application software that runs on Microsoft MS-DOS programming languages, hardware, and Microsoft Windows products will be made available on 3.5-inch discs. July 21st, 1986, Bill Gates makes the cover of Fortune magazine for the first time and is featured in an 8-page article entitled The Deal That Made Bill Gates, age 30, $350 million. On August 20th, Microsoft begins shipping Excel, Word, File, Multiplan, and Chart for the Macintosh on 800K double-sided discs. On September 5th, Steve Ballmer completes the first Trans-Lake Build G Swim after losing a challenge to the MS-DOS 5 team to complete their bug fixes by September 1st. September 17th, Microsoft announced the availability of extensions to MS-DOS that support the use of CD-ROM disk drives with personal computers. On October 2nd, Microsoft Works for the Macintosh ships. On October 10th, the Microsoft Systems Journal magazine makes its debut. It's targeted towards software developers. Now, this is the first issue devoted exclusively to Windows. On October 22nd, Aldus, Hewlett-Packard, and Microsoft form a desktop publishing alliance to market their products as a complete desktop publishing solution. By the end of the year, Microsoft shipped a stack of products. Microsoft ended the 1986 fiscal year with sales totaling more than $197 million and an employee headcount of 1,153 people. And the future looks bright for Microsoft as they acquire Aforethought, which will put them on the forefront of desktop presentations. The year was 1987. The world population reached 5 billion. Guns N' Roses' debut album Appetite for Destruction was #1 in the US, and Sun introduced the SPARC processor. And for Microsoft, expanding globally was a great way to start off the year, as it launched an official subsidiary in Spain. On April 2nd, Microsoft and IBM announced OS/2. This is the first product to be announced as a result of the joint development agreement between Microsoft and IBM in August 1985.
1987 is an exciting year for graphics interface. The increased popularity of the interface has meant that the sales of the Macintosh have been accelerating, as well as all the great software that's sold on Macintosh. It's also meant that over in the MS-DOS world, the new machines are being designed with better graphics built into them and also with higher speed. A very good example of this is IBM's new Personal System 2.
If 1987 has been a turning point, what can we expect over the next few years?
Well, the hardware that's going to be sold over the next couple of years is really a new generation of machines. And this generation is even more important than the original PC. This generation of machines will be characterized by the use of advanced microprocessors like the 286 or the 386. Also, a large number of these machines will be running the new OS/2 operating system, which allows for the use of lots of memory and for multitasking to run multiple applications at the same time. The graphics interface is an integral part of this new generation. Whether somebody's using Windows on MS-DOS or using the graphics interface that's built into OS/2, they'll get an identical appearance. Also, a great number of these new machines will be connected to networks, which will allow for group productivity, where you're exchanging information as well as preparing it on your own machine. This new generation will enable a whole new set of applications. In fact, there'll be hundreds and hundreds of great applications that take PCs much further than they've gone before and allow us to move towards this exciting vision of a machine on every desktop.
On July 30th, Microsoft acquired Forethought, the developer of PowerPoint, a leading desktop presentation application. And technology made many advances in 1987, as the first fax boards, which let people send and receive faxes on a PC, are shown at Comdex. Sun Microsystems debuts its first RISC, Reduced Instruction Set Computing Workstation, and IBM introduces the PS2, popularizing the 3.5-inch floppy and bringing 256 color displays to home PCs for the first time through the introduction of the VGA standard. As for the stock market, well, the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed above 2,000, then 2,500 for the first time, before plummeting back to the low 1700s barely 3 months later on Black Monday. It was the second largest one-day percentage decline in stock market history. On September 8th, Microsoft shipped its first CD-ROM application, Microsoft Bookshelf. It was a collection of 10 of the most popular and useful reference works on a single CD-ROM disk. Come October 6th, Microsoft announced Excel for Windows, offering unprecedented functionality, presentation capabilities, and customizability to spreadsheet users. It was 1987 and the year-end fiscal sales totaled more than $345 million. And the 1987 fiscal year employee headcount was 1,816 people. And looking forward, Microsoft has a lot more to prove. The year is 1988. George H.W. Bush defeats Michael Dukakis in the presidential election to become the 41st President of the United States. For the first time ever, CDs outsell vinyl records, and The Cosby Show is the #1 television program in America. But groundbreaking television and a Bush presidency aren't the only big news. In 1988, Microsoft adds another subsidiary, Microsoft CH, in Korea. And just days after the new year, on January 13th, Microsoft and Ashton Tate announced Microsoft SQL Server. It's a relational database server software product for local area networks.
You know, Bill, when you work as hard as I do to build a great database, you want a great server behind it. And the best thing about SQL Server is it lets DBase 4 users share data over a network.
I'm sorry, Ed, but that's not quite right. The best thing about SQL Server is that it lets Microsoft Excel users analyze and graph workgroup data.
What do you mean, Bill? SQL Server works great with DBase 4.
Look, Ed, it works great with Excel.
No, you look, Bill.
Hey, that's my data.
That's my data. It's the same data. At the same time.
From the same SQL server.
Supporting both front-end applications.
You know, Ed, it sure is silly how tooled friends can disagree over such a small misunderstanding.
Sure is, Bill. Hey, let's have a beer and discuss old times. What do you say?
Super idea. There's the server. Server! You know, when you work as hard as I do create a great spreadsheet, you want a beer that won't fill you up. And the best thing about this beer is that it's less filling.
No, Bill. The best thing about this beer is that it tastes great.
Wait, let's just assume they're both true.
Right, I think this calls for a sequel. Server.
Sequel Server Brewing, Las Vegas, Nevada.
On April 8th, Microsoft Manufacturing and Distribution moved into the Canyon Park Industrial Complex. It's a brand new 245,000 square foot facility in Bothell, Washington. In June, Microsoft hires Mike Maples, he's formerly of IBM, as Vice President of the Application Software Division. One day after Maples is hired, on June 15th, Microsoft Online, a two-way electronic support service, is announced. Now, the service allows users to send questions and requests for service directly to Microsoft support engineers. And June keeps on glowing with big Microsoft news on the 20th. Microsoft Mouse sales top the 1 million mark. Now, August sees the debut of a new automatic out-of-office notification feature for Xenix email, meaning that anyone who sends vacationing Microsoft employees an email will be automatically sent an out-of-office response, something that will become standard and essential for most email services in the future. Later that fall, Microsoft restructures the Applications Division into 5 business units designed to streamline product development and prepare the Applications Division for its expected growth over the next 5 years. October 1988 is marked by 3 big Microsoft moments. First, Microsoft and 5 other major software companies announced the formation of the Business Software Association to combat international software piracy, promote the protection of intellectual property, and reduce international trade barriers. Shortly after the formation of the BSA, Microsoft announces a new education program aimed at schools K-12 and universities. It includes a cooperative hardware-software packaging program with IBM and special-priced academic versions of selected Microsoft software. And finally, on Halloween 1988, Microsoft and IBM released the jointly developed OS/2 1.1 with Presentation Manager. In November, Microsoft closes out the year by launching the Making It All Make Sense advertising campaign. And while 1988 sees the release of other products, including Learning DOS 2.0, MS-DOS 4.01, Excel for OS/2, QuickBasic 1.0 for Mac, and the ever-popular Flight Simulator 3.0 for the PC, the world continued to see major changes. Russian politician Mikhail Gorbachev introduced Glasnost. It's a domestic policy that allowed greater freedoms of information and speech in the Soviet Union. Ted Turner acquired the MGM Film Library and started Turner Network Television, or TNT. And a computer virus created by a 23-year-old student at Cornell University attacked more than 6,000 computers, becoming the first internet worm to attract major media attention. It's the close of 1988, and Microsoft's fiscal year-end sales total over $590 million, while the employee headcount grows to 2,793 people. But the world is about to go through a period of monumental change, and Microsoft is about to go through a monumental expansion. The year is 1989. The Berlin Wall comes down and the New York Times declares the Cold War over. China imposes martial law as pro-democracy demonstrators occupy Tiananmen Square in Beijing, and Milli Vanilli wins the 1989 Grammy Award for Best New Artist. The award is later revoked when it's discovered that their entire album was lip-synced. Of course, Microsoft was in the media spotlight too. In 1989, The Today Show taped an episode in Seattle featuring the company and Bill Gates. It was also a year of massive expansion for Microsoft, as it opened a sales office in Hong Kong and subsidiaries in Brazil, Israel, Belgium, Taiwan, and Puerto Rico. And the expansions weren't just geographic. On January 20th, the Microsoft Roadshow opened in Seattle, Washington, the first of 10 stops around the country. Dealers and corporate executives had a chance to try 9 different applications, get a peek at 3 unreleased products, and attend specialty seminars on Excel and Word. 5 days later, on January 25th, Microsoft unveiled a promotional campaign for Excel for Windows, targeting users who are considering purchasing or upgrading to future releases of Lotus 1, 2, 3. The following month, on February 15th, Microsoft announces that it will make a minority investment of a little less than 20% in the Santa Cruz Operation Incorporated, the world's leading developer and publisher of Unix system software. The big Microsoft events of 1989 continue on March 27th, when the company hosts the 4th International Conference on CD-ROM. Seeing is believing in Anaheim, California.
Is we believe that it's possible to create a platform for CD software, a platform where there'll be an installed base of over 1 million machines. And that platform will allow us to transform the PC into a far more powerful tool than it is today with its floppy-based software.
Later that spring, on May 3rd, Microsoft and Ashton Tate announced the shipment of the Microsoft SQL Server 1.0, a powerful relational database server for PC-based local area networks. On the same day as the SQL announcement, Steve Ballmer is promoted to Senior Vice President. Ballmer had been Vice President of System Software since 1984, but he now reports directly to John Shirley, President. Microsoft begins the summer by forming the Multimedia Division on June 5, 1989. The division is dedicated to the development and marketing of multimedia system software and consumer products. A few weeks later, on June 19th, Office for the Macintosh is finally available. Now, this is the first ever version of Office, and Macintosh applications include Word 4.0, Excel 2.2, PowerPoint 2.01, and Mail 1.37. The 4 applications provide the tools to perform the essential business tasks of most business professionals. Also in June, Microsoft Mouse sales surpassed 2 million units. That's twice the number sold less than 1 year ago. Remarkably, it took Microsoft 5 years to ship the first 1 million units, but it takes only 1 year to ship the second million. The following month, on July 18th, the Usability Group opens its new in-house testing facilities, where it will test interfaces, documentation, and instructional materials. Also in July, the first financial analyst meeting is hosted at the corporate campus. Speakers include John Shirley, Bill Gates, Frank Gaudette, Mike Maples, Jeremy Butler, and Scott Oakey. On August 1st, 1989, Microsoft announces Online Plus. It's a comprehensive software support service that gives corporations priority access to senior technical support staff. Now, the service includes unlimited telephone access through a private phone number and electronic access to high-level support personnel and an extensive database of product information. In mid-August, Microsoft encounters a PR hurdle when a Seattle Times cover article about the working environment at Microsoft alleges that Microsoft employees are working long and dedicated hours that preclude any personal life. In response to the article, proud Microsoft employees make Microsoft velvet sweatshop logo sweatshirts and wear them on August 18th. And on August 31st, as the month comes to a close, Microsoft reveals that a complete Chinese MS-DOS version 3.21 will be provided to licensed OEMs and shipped in the future by representatives in Taiwan. Now, this will be the first time a retail version of MS-DOS has been made available directly to customers. Later that fall, on October 3rd, Microsoft announces the availability of Microsoft Flash File System, a file system for Intel's flash memory technology. It allows the MS-DOS end user to use flash memory in exactly the same way as a conventional disk drive. But there is one last major event left for the company in 1989. Just before the year ends on December 27th, Microsoft announces that John Shirley will retire as President and Chief Operating Officer on June 30th, 1990. Shirley, President since August of 1983, will continue to play a role in the management of the company as a member of the Board of Directors and as a consultant for strategic projects. And while Microsoft's notable releases in '89 include Word 5.0 for MS-DOS, Microsoft Mail 2.0, Works 2.0 for PC, MS-DOS ROM 2.0, and Microsoft Basic Professional Development System 1.0, other news continued to shake the world. including a 6.9 magnitude earthquake in the San Francisco Bay Area. As the year drew to a close, the biggest movies at the box office were Batman, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and Look Who's Talking. But Microsoft was also doing blockbuster business, and by year-end, the company's sales totaled over $804 million, while the employee headcount swelled to over 4,000 people. Still, those sales figures would pale in comparison to the upcoming year, when Microsoft would finally cross the $1 billion annual sales mark. The year is 1990. Boris Yeltsin is elected president of Russia, and the first McDonald's opens in Moscow. The savings and loan scandal rocks the banking industry. Meanwhile, Microsoft launches subsidiaries in Norway, Denmark, Portugal, and the Netherlands. And on January 8th, an international version of Word for Windows becomes available for the first time in the UK, Canada, and Australia. 1 month later, on February 13th, Microsoft and Micro Decisionware announced the Database Gateway, which integrates SQL Server and mainframe environments so that users can obtain data transparently from either or both with standard PC applications. A few days later, Microsoft license packs for large corporate accounts are announced. This new Microsoft packaged product will be distributed through dealers and is a worldwide program. In March, Microsoft makes a series of big moves. On the 5th, the company announces that it will provide TrueType outline font technology in Microsoft Windows and in OS/2 Presentation Manager 2.0. 4 days later, Microsoft Press announces the acquisition of the publication rights to the entire line of computer books from the Cobb Group Incorporated, bringing the number of Microsoft Press titles in print to more than 100. In a historic moment on March 18, 1990, East Germany holds its first democratic elections since 1932. Excel for OS/2 installed on IBM Model ADS keeps track of and charts the results in the Press Center. On March 26th, Microsoft announces the integration of voice messaging capabilities into Microsoft Mail for AppleTalk networks. It becomes the first business application to incorporate sound recording, compression, and playback technology. Days later, on the 30th, WinMail becomes available for internal use. It allows the users to manage email on a local PC with the Windows 3.0 graphical user interface. Later that spring, leadership changes come to Microsoft, as Michael Hallman is appointed as President and Chief Operating Officer to succeed upon John Shirley's retirement. On April 9th, Russian MS-DOS 4.01 becomes the first Microsoft product localized for the Soviet market. At the end of the month, on April 30th, technical support directly from Microsoft is extended to the more than 25 million users of Microsoft MS-DOS in the United States. In May, Microsoft donates $100,000 to the Smithsonian Institution for a new exhibit to be called The Information Age: People, Information, and Technology. This exhibit will explore the way information technology has changed society over the past 150 years, and a special selection will be devoted to the evolution of personal computers into current information technology. May 22nd proved to be a momentous day for the company, as Microsoft announces the availability of Windows 3.0 at the City Center Theater in New York, New York. Breakthroughs in computer memory management would make this version the one that finally gave momentum to third-party applications being built for the Windows environment.
Tell Bill it's ready.
Well, I'm glad to hear it's ready.
this would have been a very extravagant way to announce a delay in our schedule. Today we're introducing Microsoft Windows version 3. I think that this represents a major milestone in the history of the PC industry. An early milestone in PC history was the creation of the MS-DOS operating system, brought out in 1981. The MS-DOS operating system provided a means for hundreds of hardware manufacturers to build machines and hundreds of software companies to build applications at the same time, with all of those applications working on all those machines. Now, Microsoft recognized a long time ago that the DOS interface wouldn't help us to achieve our vision. Our vision is that there will be a personal computer on every desktop, and it will be the key tool for the information age. Now, we're going to do this demonstration on a 1 megabyte PC. We want to prove to you this is a great product for 1 megabyte systems. But the first thing you'll notice is how we've changed the look of Windows 3.0. For example, we've done an incredible amount to use color in a much better way. All of these icons make really extensive use of color. We've also cleaned up the borders, and we've changed the font. We now use different size fonts, and we use proportional fonts that look much better.
In the heat of summer, the Microsoft Roadshow 90, Seeing is Believing, hits the highways. For the third year, products and expertise are taken to selected cities around the country, and seminars are offered to end users and resellers. This show is almost entirely devoted to Microsoft Windows products and the graphical user interface. Later on July 2nd, 1990, the Microsoft Company Store opens. It will provide Microsoft Pressbooks, Microsoft software, and Microsoft Mark logo items. A week later, on July 11th, Microsoft announces plans to open an East Coast product support services site located in Charlotte, North Carolina. The end of the month, on July 24th, 1990, Microsoft kicked off its 15th anniversary celebration by becoming the first personal computer software company to exceed $1 billion in sales in a single year, with revenues of $1.18 billion. Happy anniversary indeed. That fall, on August 30th, Microsoft forms the Microsoft Consulting Services Group, aimed at helping large corporate customers better use Microsoft products to build complex information systems. In September, Microsoft launches the Microsoft Windows Computing Marketing Program. It's the largest single marketing campaign in the company's history to date. The total cost of the marketing campaign is more than $7 million. At the end of the month, the Microsoft Consultant Relations Program, a new program designed to support third-party consultants who develop systems based on Microsoft products for their customers, is announced. On November 12th, Microsoft Corporation and Interface Group announced the joining of forces to launch Windows World Conference and Exposition. The annual industry event will address the needs of the rapidly growing number of companies offering Windows products. Also in November, Bill Gates delivers his Information at Your Fingertips speech at Fall Comdex, Las Vegas, Nevada.
It was 7 years ago, in 1983, when I last keynoted Comdex. At that time, I kicked off Microsoft's crusade for the graphical user interface. Well, a lot has changed in these 7 years. Not only has that crusade come to fruition, but now we're in an industry that's far more professional and far larger. One dramatic illustration of this change is the way I've gone about preparing my second keynote speech. In 1983, I spent an hour writing the speech, and I showed up about 10 minutes before start time. I plugged in the slide projector myself, and since I couldn't find anyone to change the slides, I asked my father, who'd come down to see the speech, if he'd do that for me. Well, this year, we're a little more elaborate. It's a real honor to keynote the first Comdex of the 1990s. The PC industry is faced this year with a major question of whether it will continue to be the very innovative, high-growth industry that it was throughout the 1980s. So this vision of information at your fingertips has exciting possibilities. It's the direction that I think we need to head. This is a formidable challenge. No single company is going to be able to do this. It's going to require hardware manufacturers, software developers, and the distribution channels all cooperating to make the vision of information at your fingertips a reality. Thank you.
And finally, the end of November 1990, the specifications of PC-based media are announced at the Microsoft Multimedia Developers Conference in San Jose. Other announcements at the conference include the Multimedia Development Kit, Tandy's plans to deliver integrated Microsoft Windows-based multimedia PCs or MPCs and upgrade kits, and Microsoft and IBM's publication of a specification for common multimedia API and data formats. Elsewhere in 1990, Tim Berners-Lee writes the initial prototype for the World Wide Web. The Gulf War begins as Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait, and Time Inc. and Warner Brothers merge to form Time Warner. As the old year ends, Microsoft has reached a staggering fiscal year-end sales totaling of $1,183 million, putting the corporation over the $1 billion mark for the first time ever. And as Microsoft says goodbye to 1990, the employee headcount totals 5,635 people. Amazingly, that billion-dollar year was only the beginning. The year is 1991. Pan Am closes down after 64 years as one of the nation's leading airlines. Clarence Thomas is confirmed as a Supreme Court justice despite accusations of sexual harassment by Anita Hill, and grunge enters the national vocabulary as Nirvana's album Nevermind hits the charts and the single Smells Like Teen Spirit becomes a massive success. Also massively successful in 1991 was Microsoft as it launched new subsidiaries in Venezuela, Hong Kong, New Zealand, Mexico, Austria, Argentina, and Thailand. And expansion results in a makeover of sorts. On February 1st, 1991, Microsoft announces a major redesign of product packaging to include the new Windows flag logo. This is, however, not the four-colored flag, but the first Windows-compatible mark. Later that month, on February 25th, it is revealed that 21 computer manufacturers have announced their intentions to build pen-based computers that will support the Microsoft Windows for Pen Computing, or Windows for Pens. In early March, Microsoft reports an agreement to acquire the assets of Consumers Software, Inc. These assets include the Network Courier product line for PC local area networks. On March 8, 1991, a toll-free piracy hotline number is established for consumer reports or inquiries about pirated software products, the creatively spelled 1-800-NOCOPYN. Days later, on March 11th, Microsoft announces the Ballpoint mouse, designed especially for use with laptop computers. Students everywhere rejoiced on March 18th when Microsoft announces the Microsoft Bookshelf for Windows on CD-ROM. Now, Bookshelf is a core set of reference materials for the home, office, or school that is run on a personal computer. But that wasn't the only Microsoft move made on the 18th. The company also purchases a 26% share of Dorling Kindersley Ltd. It's a London-based book publisher and international packager. As part of the agreement, the Microsoft Multimedia Publishing Group gains rights to license content from Dorling Kindersley for use in future multimedia software titles. And on the same day, Microsoft announces that along with 11 other companies, it plans to use a special MPC trademark to indicate to customers that hardware products and systems software bearing the mark are compatible with the previously announced multimedia PC specification. The month of March closes with good news for Microsoft. On the 25th, sales of software applications written for Windows 3.0 skyrocket. Newly released Software Publishers Association data for the year end of 1990 shows a 157% increase in sales of Windows applications in both the US and Canada. Later that spring, on May 10th, Microsoft's aggressive anti-piracy campaign gets a new slogan: Work with the original. Logos, artwork, posters, brochures, and marketing programs and events will all emphasize the advantages of working with legitimate software, both domestically and internationally. On May 20th, there's even more big news as Microsoft announces Visual Basic for Windows at Windows World 1991 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, this isn't the biggest show of the year, but it's the only one with 3 keynote speeches. This first Windows World is dedicated to those of you who've supported Windows since its introduction back in 1983. I had an opportunity to go out on the show floor last night and look around at some of the new things that are going on. And it was fun to have developers come up to me and talk to me about their applications. Several of them described things they're doing with Windows that I wouldn't have even imagined would be possible. And a number of them talked about the great sales that they're having of their applications.
But that's only the first of 2 major software announcements. The second comes on June 11th, when Microsoft announces the immediate availability of Microsoft MS-DOS 5.0.
Speed, take 5, cue 'em. You never know when it will happen. Your DOS applications demand more memory. You want to move between applications like that. And you want to move files between directories just as fast. You're in a hurry to edit a text file, and you haven't quite mastered edlib. What do? Or you trash a file by mistake. What do? What do you do? Get MS-DOS 5. No PC should be without it.
3 days later, Microsoft is finally connected to the nationwide TCP IP-based internet. It's a sign of big things to come. At the height of summer on July 8th, the company announces that a product support service site will be opened in Dallas, Texas in October of '91. The new Dallas site will be headed by Glenn Young, who will report to Patty Stonecipher. A familiar and very useful app makes its debut on August 5th. Microsoft Wizards will allow Microsoft applications to anticipate what a user will do next, or suggest a better way to accomplish the task. The technology would enable the program to follow a user's movements as she or he works and draw a conclusion as to what the user is apt to do next. By the end of August, Excel 3.0 for Windows is generating significant gains in market share and a groundswell of support from software developers and corporate customers. Microsoft ships 1.5 million units of Excel worldwide, and 40% of the increased market share of Excel comes from users who are switching to Excel from competitive spreadsheet packages. On September 16th, Microsoft releases the Solution Series. It's a collection of standalone task-oriented applications designed for the personal and small business computer user. The applications include Works for Windows, Money, and Publisher. Now, all these apps run under Windows 3.0 and are designed for people who are new to personal computing and those who don't want to spend a lot of extra time playing around with their computers. November 1st turns out to be the date of Microsoft's second big makeover of the year. At Fall Comdex 91, Microsoft announces the new and now familiar Microsoft Windows logo, a colorful window with trailing rectangular tails in the shape of a fluttering flag. It's intended to be displayed on products that are compatible with versions 3.0 and 3.1 of Windows. Days later, November 8th, Microsoft workers demonstrate their generosity. For the first time, employees contribute more than $1 million to the United Way campaign. With Microsoft's dollar-for-dollar corporate match, the 1991 donation comes to more than $2 million. As the year comes to a close, Microsoft has one final announcement: open database connectivity that allows applications to communicate easily with both relational and non-relational management systems. It's based on the SQL Access Group's call level interface specification, which uses SQL to access database environments. In 1991, Terminator 2, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Silence of the Lambs dominate the box office, and Microsoft continued to dominate sales. 91 has been a wildly successful year for the corporation, which sees a fiscal year-end sales totaling excess of $1,843 million. Additionally, 91 sees the employee headcount balloon to over 8,000 people. But as the internet begins to gradually establish itself, how will Microsoft ride the coming online wave? 1992, Bill Clinton is elected president, defeating incumbent George H.W. Bush and businessman Ross Perot. Johnny Carson retires from The Tonight Show after 30 years and is replaced by Jay Leno. And Superman dies at the hands of a monster called Doomsday in Superman issue number 75. 1992 was also a banner year for Microsoft as it launches subsidiaries in many different countries, including South Africa, Chile, Greece, the Czech Republic, Poland, the Middle East, Colombia, and Russia. And while Microsoft continues to expand around the globe, in early January it makes an expansion of a different kind when a portable computing initiative suite of technologies is announced. Later that month, on January 28th, Scott Oakey, Senior Vice President of U.S. Sales, Marketing, and Service, retires. Microsoft promotes Jeff Rakes, currently Vice President of the Office Systems Group, to fill the position. The following month, on February 3rd, Microsoft announces a new organizational structure and outlines 3 centers of strategic focus: worldwide product development, worldwide sales and support, and worldwide operations. The company creates a corresponding 3-person Office of the President to be filled by Michael Maples, Stephen Ballmer, and Francis Gaudette, who will report directly to Bill Gates, Chairman and CEO. On February 18th, Microsoft announces that it will, along with Intel, R.R. Donnelley & Sons, and Ziff Davis Publishing, host a 3-day Windows hardware engineering conference for manufacturers of personal computer systems. In March, Intel and Microsoft introduced a new specification in beta form called DB-MCI. It will expand the media control interface for the Microsoft Windows graphical environment to work with current and future forms of digital video. And lest you think folks at Microsoft are all work and no play, on March 17th, Frank Gaudette, Executive Vice President of Worldwide Operations Group, leads dignitaries from Ireland and Seattle in Seattle's 1992 St. Patrick's Day Parade. It's lights, camera, action on March 20th, when for the first time TV ads are used to promote Microsoft Windows to computer users who don't necessarily read computer magazines. The commercials, which will run on network and cable programs, stress how easy personal computing can be with Windows. The commercials also promote Microsoft business programs designed to work with Windows. 3 days after the ads begin to air, Microsoft announces the Microsoft Certified Professional Program. Microsoft certification measures expertise, which helps ensure quality support to end users and company personnel. March 24th sees the company expand once again as Microsoft and Fox Software announce that they intend to merge. Under the terms of the final agreement, Dave Fulton and other Fox employees will join Microsoft. And on that last day of March, Microsoft teams up with OEMs, computer resellers, and component manufacturers to pre-install Microsoft Windows version 3.1 on a wide variety of personal computers. April 6th proves to be a momentous day as Microsoft ships Windows 3.1 with more than 1,000 enhancements. The new version creates unprecedented user demand, with more than 1 million advance orders placed worldwide. On April 7th, the new Pen operating system, aka Windows for Pens, is announced. It is the only operating system that combines full pen computing functionality and full compatibility with Windows version 3.1. More than 220 hardware and software companies have announced support. April 15th is a victorious day for Microsoft. The U.S. District Court of Northern California rules in favor of Microsoft in the ongoing Apple copyright infringement lawsuit. Now, unfortunately, April 29th finds Microsoft doing some very surreal damage control. In response to an inflammatory newspaper article in the New York Post, Microsoft announces that there are no hidden messages contained in any of the Wingdings fonts in the Microsoft Windows operating system, and certainly no hate messages against any religious or ethnic groups. On July 6, 1992, Microsoft demonstrates an early version of Windows NT at the Win32 Professional Developers Conference. All conference attendees receive Win32 API Preliminary Software Developers Kit for Windows NT, which contains an early release of Windows NT.
I think this is probably the biggest gathering of PC developers that there's ever been. In fact, we've overflowed the capacity of the Moscone Center. Windows NT is a very safe bet for the MIS community. That is because it's not tied to any particular hardware manufacturer or even any particular hardware instruction set. And so the kind of independence we're providing and the kind of tools that will be out on this platform really make it the safest choice for MIS development.
It's no accident that we called this conference the Win32 Professional Developers Conference. The focus is on the application programming interfaces that enable developers to write an application once that runs on a family of operating systems, including Windows 3.1, as well as Windows NT.
Well, for a long time, people in MIS have faced a dilemma, which is should they go for PC software, which had a wide variety of application software available, or should they go for a mini-computer or Unix-style software, which had more features but much less software available? What Windows NT does is actually solve that dilemma. For the first time, they can really choose an operating system that has the high-end features they need, as well as the wealth of application software.
We've really built in the network capability into NT and interoperability with other systems, other PC networks, Unix systems, even connections to mainframes and whatever. So it's a system that will be able to work on the desktop, compatibly on the server, and grow with the needs of an organization.
I think the group that will get the most benefit from NT will be the MIS groups, because this power combined with great applications really opens up new opportunities for them. Their end users want the benefits of PCs, and they want to write applications that have no limits in terms of providing business information.
Later that month, on July 29th, the Microsoft Developer Network is announced. Now, this new customer service is established to support all commercial and corporate developers writing applications for Microsoft Windows. The MDN will write and publish in-depth technical and strategic information on programming for Windows. And the software keeps coming when Windows for Workgroups 3.1 becomes available worldwide on October 27th. Another big date, November 10th, when Microsoft Chairman and CEO Bill Gates and President of Intel Corporation Andrew S. Grove announced the two companies' shared vision for the next wave in personal computing, digital video computing. Microsoft announces Video for Windows, which incorporates Intel Indio technology that will allow users to integrate digital video information into applications that run on Microsoft Windows. 6 days later at Comdex, Microsoft announces the availability of Access Database for Windows. It is the last major announcement in a year that sees Bill Gates receive the National Medal of Technology, becoming the first person in the PC software industry to do so. As 1992 takes a bow, Wayne's World, Aladdin, and Basic Instinct dominate the box office, and Microsoft dominates sales, pulling in a jaw-dropping $2,758 million over the year. And like the year before, the headcount swells dramatically to over 11,000 people. But 1993 will bring creative new software and a tragic loss to the rapidly expanding company. The year is 1993. A gun battle erupts in Waco, Texas between the FBI and the Branch Davidians, and the ensuing standoff ends 51 days later in tragedy. The U.S. House of Representatives approves the North American Free Trade Agreement, better known as NAFTA, and Jurassic Park sets a box office record when it grosses $47 million in just one weekend. In 1993, Microsoft also continued its meteoric expansion, launching new subsidiaries in Puerto Rico, Turkey, Hungary, Ecuador, Morocco, and the United Arab Emirates. And on January 27th, Microsoft Select, a product support program, is introduced to make it easier for large organizations to acquire and maintain Microsoft products. 1 month later, on February 25th, Microsoft announces that it has finally gained ownership of the Windows trademark through its extensive use of the mark and industry-wide recognition of the Windows product. But not all Microsoft news is as serious as the trademark issue. On March 5th, an article in Telecommunications Magazine talks about how using Q jockeys, professional radio DJs who host the Microsoft product support service telephone waiting lines, has proved successful. The QJ program was designed beginning in 1991 to provide a more customer-friendly alternative to the taped background music many companies play for callers on hold. The QJs receive information on the number of callers waiting on each line and then play a variety of music whose goal is to soothe but not irritate the person waiting. On March 22nd, Microsoft Encarta, the first multimedia encyclopedia designed for a computer, goes on sale. A few days later, Microsoft announces the availability of the MS-DOS 6.0 upgrade.
Hundreds of you dialed in for this during the elegance of 18-karat gold. E2134. This is a coup. Microsoft just announced the price increase on the DOS 6.0 upgrade. Yeah, it's going to be $129.95. In fact, as of June 1st, it is. We bought these before June 1st. So while our supplies last on this, the MS-DOS 6.0 operating system upgrade, of course, with double space, the antivirus program, it allows you to defragment your hard drive and gives you a lot more disk real estate. $45.90, E2134. You can dial in for that right now.
And in more whimsical Microsoft news, on April 6th, the Microsoft Ballpoint mouse is launched into space. The Ballpoint mouse hitches a ride aboard the NASA Space Shuttle Discovery, attached to the payload and general support computer running the space shuttle's primary scientific project, the Atmospheric Laboratory for Science and Applications. This mouse is the first input device used by NASA in the actual configuration available to general consumers. Back on Earth, Microsoft reports that the number of licensed users of Microsoft Windows now totals more than 25 million, making it the most popular graphical operating system in the world. The corporation receives sad news on April 23, 1993, when Frank Gaudet, Executive Vice President of Operations and Chief Financial Officer, passes away at the age of 57 after an 8-month battle against cancer. Gaudet came to Microsoft in 1984, and in 1986 he was instrumental in organizing the initial public offering. On April 27th, Microsoft Mouse 2.0, now with a new sophisticated ergonomic design, is made available to customers.
The Microsoft mouse. I hear you now, it's just a mouse. Microsoft spent millions developing an ergonomic mouse and mouse driver software that makes this an absolute joy to use, both functionally and comfort-wise. E2303, $79.90. You need at least MS-DOS 2.0 or later to run this, and a 3.5 or 5.25 inch disk drive. It comes with a 9-pin and 25-pin serial port connector. E2303. Hard to find out there in the stores.
Showing just how respected Microsoft's products have become, on May 7th, former President George Bush and his 10-person staff upgrade their computers' Mail 3.2 and Windows Remote Mail thanks to the Dallas account team. On May 24th, Microsoft announces Windows NT and Windows NT Advanced Server 3.1 at Windows World 1993 in Atlanta, Georgia. The following month, on June 2nd, Plug and Play ISA Specification version 1.0 is released. A week later, on June 9th, Microsoft unveils Microsoft at Work. This new software architecture focuses on making the full functionality of digital devices easier to use.
The idea of our architecture is to take the entire workplace, the digital workplace, and think of it as a whole, to bring together the idea of the phone, the copier, the printer, the fax, and the PC into one overall approach. The idea is that wherever there's a screen, whether it's on a mobile device that you carry around, or on an advanced phone, or on the PC, you ought to be able to call up a directory and see who's who and get the information about them. You ought to be able to call up your schedule. Any changes that you make to information, like updating someone's phone number, ought to immediately impact all of the devices and get them working together. Likewise, any printing device, whether it's a fax or copier, you ought to be able to control it remotely. You ought to be able to see a graphical representation of what's going on with that device. And you should never have to rekey information as it moves across these various device boundaries. And so it's a very integrated approach.
As the summer ends, Excel 4.0 becomes the world's top-selling spreadsheet, shipping more than 5 million new units worldwide. And in the fall, on September 14th, Microsoft ships SQL Server for Windows NT. The shipment of SQL Server and related tools, interfaces, and connectivity components for Windows NT underscores Microsoft's commitment to delivering a complete family of information management products for client-server computing. On October 4th, Microsoft introduces the Microsoft Home brand. It's a broad range of consumer software products targeted at home computer users.
Do what you want to do.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Gates. Today we're going to be talking about the most exciting and the highest growth part of the PC market, the home market. We're also going to show you some new products and talk about Microsoft's commitment to this entire area. From the very beginning of Microsoft, we saw the potential for a computer in the home. In fact, our founding vision was a computer on every desk and in every home. Now, what we meant by that was that we knew that with the miracle of microprocessor technology and all the other advances, that eventually there would be a machine that was capable enough that the software industry would write applications, making that a great tool for learning and education and dealing with information in the home environment. Another technology that Microsoft got behind in the 80s was CD-ROM. Now, CD-ROM is, of course, just the same media, the compact disc, that's used for audio. And because that audio is stored in a digital form, that is, there's numbers on that disc, we can use it in the personal computer. And it's really incredible because the capacity is over 500 times that of a floppy disk. And it means that things like images and motion pictures and lots of text can easily be put onto that disk. But over here on these shelves, you can see some of the CD titles that are shipping today. And they run the whole range that you could imagine. Software for kids, software for fun, software that talks about dinosaurs, musical instruments, you name it. There are now hundreds and hundreds of companies putting this together. And although there's only a few hundred titles out today, within a year we expect there'll be many thousands of titles. And we'll pass that critical point where literally every publisher sees that CD is a media that they want to get their material out in. And so the more titles that come out, the more machines we get sold with the CD player, and therefore the more titles we get, leading to a really incredible phenomena. A simple image you might want to have in your head is that it's all about taking a very high-speed wire and having that wire connect into the back of the future home PC and into the back of the future home TV. And so in the case of the TV, games and videos are all there. In the case of the PC, everything we have today and a lot more where you collaborate with other people will be available. The companies that are successful over this next decade, as this all rolls out, will be the ones that focus on the things we've talked about today. How do you make these products useful, enjoyable? How do you put personality into them? And how do you draw on the whole family so that these devices in the home are really something that are very, very worthwhile?
On November 1st, the Microsoft Wish system is created to make it simple for customers to send product improvement suggestions. It's a service that acts as a repository for customer feedback by entering all product suggestions into a central database. At year ends on December 7th, Microsoft announces two final and slightly adorable products, Creative Writer and Fine Artist, Microsoft's first two software products designed especially for children. Elsewhere in '93, Puerto Rico voted against becoming the 51st state, Czechoslovakia separated into the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and IBM introduced the ThinkPad family of PDAs. And at Microsoft, it was another booming year, as the fiscal year-end sales total is over $3,752 million, and the employee headcount grows to more than 14,000 people. But it's only the beginning, because the following year, Microsoft will quietly begin to develop the next version of Windows, a little operating system known as Windows 95. The year is 1994. Nelson Mandela becomes president of South Africa following the country's first open election. Millions watch O.J. Simpson flee police in a white Ford Bronco, and for the first time in 90 years, there is no World Series when the baseball season ends with a strike. And while the world watches these diverse events unfold, Microsoft continues its forward momentum. On January 31st, Microsoft Plus, a support program designed to increase user satisfaction with Microsoft and its products, is announced. The following month, on February 14th, Microsoft signs a definitive agreement to acquire Softimage Incorporated. Softimage is a leading developer of high-performance 2D and 3D computer animation and visualization software. The stock transition, which has an approximate value of $130 million, is approved by the board of directors of both companies. In the summer on May 17th, Microsoft introduces the architecture for its new software solution for delivering continuous media, such as audio and video. Now, this software solution is codenamed Tiger. The Tiger technology, based on Microsoft Windows NT Advanced Server, is a fully scalable media file server solution. It will provide media on demand for personal, corporate, and citywide deployment.
You can view it as a portal onto the information superhighway. In other words, it can be playing video information. Here it's playing a demo clip from Softimage, which is a company that produces 3D animation and graphics. So it can be used for that purpose. But as Craig mentioned, this machine is actually also a Tiger server. And in fact, using modern PC technology, a box of this size could easily support more than 100 simultaneous video streams of this type. So what we're really saying is that relatively small computers can run the Tiger software, and those types of systems can be extremely important. Now, of course, none of this really makes any sense or really does any good for you unless the system is actually going to do something that users actually want. Well, one of the things that they may want to do is to grab control of their own video, to be able to select videos of their choosing, and to be able to access information within those videos that they want. So here we've now centered attention on a particular monitor which has a remote control receiver sitting right next to it, and I've got a remote control device right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a movie that I might be interested in seeing. So let's see. I'm thinking about what kind of content I might want to have, and whether I'm not that interested in the weather, sports. Maybe I'm interested in a music video. So I can immediately pick a music video, and in less than a second, that particular clip will come on. Now, I can pick anything else that I might want. The user, with this type of remote control device, has complete control of the information that they want to get access to.
2 days later, Connie Chung interviews Bill Gates on CBS's Eye to Eye.
It's Eye to Eye with Connie Chung.
He was actually 25 in 1980 when he clinched the deal of a lifetime, winning a contract to design software for IBM. Brilliantly, Gates kept the right to sell the software, known as MS-DOS, anywhere he pleased. Do you think you are successful?
I think by most measures, I'm successful.
MS-DOS would become the central nervous system of most computers, the music and driving rhythm inside their plastic shell. And for Gates, that was just the beginning. Is it true that you can leap over a chair from a standing position?
It depends on the size of the chair, but this chair, probably so.
Will you do it?
You know, I don't know with the microphone on if it's doable.
Watch the light, okay?
I'll cheat a little bit.
In early June, Microsoft and Scholastic Inc. announce an alliance. Now, this will include the developments of children's multimedia products and other activities that blend Microsoft's technology expertise with Scholastic's vast knowledge of children's communication. A week later, on June 20th, the next version of the Microsoft Windows operating system, codenamed Chicago, enters its first broad testing phase. More than 20,000 customers, software developers, and hardware manufacturers in more than 20 countries worldwide are expected to receive beta products. Chicago is the planned replacement for Microsoft MS-DOS and Windows. It will later be known as Windows 95.
I have to say this is a very important time in the history of our industry. We have a lot of new advances that are going to change the way that people think of a personal computer. We're moving from an era in which the PC was simply a tool to help people get things done, to now where the PC will become the communications device that will redefine how we work, how we play, and how we learn. It's been fascinating to see as we roll out this new user interface, to see the incredible range of reaction that we've had. The Bob, which is our first application with social interface, has been widely praised as a new way to really pull users in and make it simple so you don't have to know all those toolbar icons and all those menu items. Other people have said, well, no, this won't do. You know, we spent all these times learning all those menu items. You can't really come along and simplify it. And it's a lot like graphical interface, where the original character mode users thought it was just maybe for wimpy users, and they weren't going to be drawn into anything that lowered that barrier to entry. Well, clearly graphics interface didn't take off overnight. It took a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, and the criticisms about the speed and the development tools, those were all valid, and it took many years to overcome those to get to the point we're at today, where it's taken as a given. And likewise, social interface, the idea of remembering what the user is good at looking at where they pause and have problems, and using that context to help them. It'll take a long time to catch on. For over 2 years now, we've had copies out at software developers, letting them not only start their development work, but having them tell us which routines they want us to speed up, what things they think we should simplify. And we've been able to respond to all that feedback and really enable people to do great new things with their applications. We're really getting down to the final stages of Windows 95 development, and we're really kind of anxious to get the product out there.
The following day, June 21st, Microsoft previews Exchange Server for the first time. Exchange Server offers users an integrated inbox for email, scheduling, electronic forms, faxes, voicemail, and access to online services. Later in June, an Open Speech API specification for 32-bit Windows platforms is announced. The API provides interfaces for enabling applications to make use of native speech recognition and text-to-speech capabilities. At the same time, Microsoft chooses Wieden & Kennedy, a Portland-based advertising agency, to create its first global image advertising campaign. The contract is worth an estimated $40 million in annual billings. The decision to launch a global image campaign is considered a major departure for Microsoft. In the past, Microsoft has advertised its products separately, relying almost entirely on print advertising in trade and business publications. On July 15th, Microsoft and Digital Equipment Corporation hold the first design preview of the preliminary specification for the Common Object Model, or COM, an open architecture for cross-platform development of Microsoft OLE-based client-server applications. On July 16th, the battle is finally over. Microsoft announces that it has reached a settlement with the Justice Department, ending 4 years of government investigation. The specific areas covered under the settlement pertain only to Microsoft's software license agreements with OEMs and non-disclosure agreements for pre-release versions of operating system products. A month later, on August 12th, Microsoft announces plans to rescue baseball fans during the 1994 baseball strike, utilizing Microsoft Complete Baseball as a life raft for baseball purists. Microsoft's special online service, Baseball Daily, will be available for free to everyone who currently has the program for the duration of the strike. That fall, on September 12th, at a private briefing for about 500 OEM customers in Seattle, Microsoft outlined the basic Marvel services the company intends to deliver over time. These services include email, product and vendor forums, bulletin boards integrated with Usenet news groups, conferencing, and forums for special interest groups. Initially, Microsoft will use Marvel, or MSN, the Microsoft Network, primarily as an online support service for its products. Later in September, Microsoft introduces Microsoft Back Office, an integrated information system. Back Office includes Mail Server 3.2, which will provide a direct upgrade path to Microsoft Exchange Server, which is scheduled to ship in 1995. October 3rd is cause for celebration at Microsoft. On that date, the millionth copy of Microsoft Project ships. This milestone reflects the combined shipments of all versions of Microsoft Project, full packaged product, and does not include shipments of product updates. Another lighthearted moment arrives on October 7th, when the Consumer Division announces the National Image the Magic contest. School children in grades 3 through 6 are asked to describe what the coolest computer could do. In 50 words or less, the 6 children who win will receive an all-expense-paid trip with a parent to the corporate campus in Redmond, where they will meet and share ideas with Bill Gates. On November 1st, it's the premiere of Microsoft TV, a 1-hour semi-monthly satellite broadcast program. It's designed to help customers stay informed about Microsoft products applications, and strategies. It's aimed at corporate information services professionals, software developers, line of business managers, and Microsoft solution providers. Also on November 1st, Microsoft announces the acquisition of the assets of NextBase Limited, a leading interactive mapping and route planning software company based in the United Kingdom. Products include AutoMap Road, Atlas in the US, and AutoRoute Expression in Europe. On November 9th, Microsoft launches a global brand campaign. Over the next few months, the company will invest over $100 million in an international marketing campaign to build the Microsoft brand name. The campaign, Where Do You Want to Go Today?, aims to differentiate Microsoft from the competition and to get people excited about software.
Listen, this stuff that we make, it's powerful. It makes you powerful. Take it. Gather up your ideas. Listen. This stuff, run with it. Listen, it's powerful. This stuff that we make, it's powerful. This stuff that we make trouble and good things. Gather up your ideas. Make some mistakes. Just do something amazing. Good things. It makes you powerful. This stuff that we make, take it. Gather up your ideas. Do something amazing. Gather up your ideas. Run to something good. We're in your corner. Listen. We can't wait to see what you're going to do. Listen. Listen. Listen.
In mid-November, Microsoft announces that it has acquired One Tree Software, a privately held company which produces SourceSafe, a source code control tool for advanced team software development. This acquisition provides a source code control solution that can be used as a central development manager by developers using Microsoft tools. It's scheduled to be available in December of '94. And while 1994 saw plenty of grim news like the death of Kurt Cobain, an attack on ice skater Nancy Kerrigan, and the 6.7 magnitude Northridge earthquake in Los Angeles, there was brighter news in Redmond. Bill Gates bought Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks at a Christie's auction for a record $30.8 million and could easily afford it, as Microsoft raked in a staggering $4,649 million in 1994, while the employee headcount climbed to over 15,000. But nothing that Microsoft had done before could compare with the massive fanfare that greeted the release of the mysterious operating system codenamed Chicago. The year is 1995. The World Wide Web explodes in popularity and content, and Amazon.com makes its debut. O.J. Simpson is acquitted of murdering his ex-wife and her friend after a controversial 10-month trial, and the UPN and WB networks go on the air. But there are also major developments in the world of computing. Sun unveils the Java programming language. IBM pays $3.5 billion for Lotus Development Corporation, and Microsoft launches new subsidiaries in Slovenia, the Philippines, Slovakia, Panama, Guatemala, and the People's Republic of China. And on January 7, 1995, during his first keynote at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas, Bill Gates announces Microsoft Bob for Windows. Bob is designed to provide the essential tools for home computing in 8 interconnected programs that help users organize, communicate, and play with their computers through a new design called the Social Interface. On March 14th, Microsoft announces Microsoft Schedule Plus for Windows 95, an upgrade to be incorporated into Microsoft Office for Windows. Now, this new version is scheduled to be available shortly after the release of Windows 95 through standard retail outlets as a standalone product or as part of the forthcoming release of Microsoft Office. Later that month, on March 22nd, Microsoft and DreamWorks SKG announced that they have signed a joint venture agreement to form a new software company. The company will produce interactive and multimedia entertainment properties. And on June 16th, the U.S. Court of Appeals reinstates a 1994 antitrust settlement between Microsoft and the Justice Department that was rejected by U.S. District Judge Stanley Sporkin in February of 1995. Later in June, Microsoft announces the shipment of Microsoft SQL Server 6.0. SQL Server 6.0 is a scalable, high-performance DBMS designed specifically for distributed client-server computing. But most importantly, August 24th, 1995 turns out to be the biggest day of the year for Microsoft, when Microsoft Windows 95 and Office 95 are made available worldwide. The launch is celebrated in a variety of colorful ways. In Sydney, a giant balloon floats in the harbor while dancers perform in the streets. In New York, the Empire State Building is bathed in the colors of the Windows 95 logo. In London, Microsoft pays for 1.5 million copies of the London Times, all containing a Windows 95 advertising supplement to be given out for free. And in Toronto, Microsoft hangs a giant banner of the Windows 95 logo on the CN Tower. Then, a rappel team leaps off the tower equipped with portable computers running the software.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the launch of Windows 95.
You know, I can't believe what an incredible product this is. You know, before I met Bill Gates, I knew almost nothing about computers. He was kind enough to lend me one, this beautiful 1975 Altar 8800. This thing has a worse memory than Rosa Lopez. The nice thing about it, though, you can put 20 phone numbers in it, and within 45 minutes, call any one of them back just like that. Pretty amazing stuff. Jay. But let me tell you about something really incredible.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Leno.
Hey! Thank you! Thank you, thank you! Thank you! Well, welcome, Microsofties. Nice to have you all here. As you know, I'm host of The Tonight Show on NBC, which stands for Now Bill Compatible. Actually, I'm here to tell you about this Windows 95 thing. Let me give you an idea. Give you an idea how powerful Windows 95 is. It is able to keep track of all of OJ's alibis at once. Pretty amazing stuff. Yeah. The sleeping limo driver, the golf game, it's all in there. It's all in there. You know, Bill has done so much to market Windows 95. You know, when I first met with Bill, and I kind of questioned his initial idea. That's why I was brought into the project. I said, Bill, you know, you're smart, you're a genius, but is Amway really the way to go? You know, it didn't feel right to me, and of course, I was brought into the project. Now, the reason I was chosen for this job, I'm not really computer literate. I should explain that right now. This is sort of a My Fair Lady thing. He's Rex Harrison. I'm going to be the Audrey Hepburn. When I first got a sophisticated piece of electronic equipment, you know, I never forget, it took me like 2 hours just to read the directions. It took me another 2 hours to get the thing, you know, totally hooked up. And of course, that was just the clapper, all right? So that'll give you some idea, basically where I'm coming from. Let's welcome the chairman of Microsoft. Listen to this. This is a man so successful, his chauffeur is Ross Perot, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Bill Gates and the Bill Gates Dancers.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate your making excuses for us. But the truth is, we decided to take the extra 9 months in order to test Windows 95 thoroughly and make sure it met the highest quality standards. We wanted people to be able to appreciate how Windows 95 makes computing faster, easier, and more fun.
All right, now see, this is the part that worries me. Faster, easier, more. See, I'm kind of a computer virgin here, Bill, and as we go through this, I hope you'll be gentle. I hope you'll be kind. All right?
Well, Windows 95 is so easy, even a talk show host can figure it out.
Oh, boy.
Why don't you show us how to demo it?
Oh, well, no. I'll do that. You know, for the past couple of months, I've had Windows 95 running on a computer in my office. Been trying out, seeing what it can do, you know. And I have big news, folks. I haven't broken it, and I figure if I can use it, anybody can pretty much use this thing.
That's great, but I want you to show us how to use it. Since you're such an expert, show us some of your favorite features.
Favorite features? What are you saying, Bill? I don't know how to do this. You're saying maybe I can't handle this little computer thing? Maybe I don't have the guts to kind of make it work?
I think we paid you enough. You should do the demo.
Yeah. hang on. Whoa. You know, sometimes these big CEOs, they get a little out of touch with the product. So let's go to square one. Let's go back to the basics, and I'll explain it for you. All right. And again, for some of the laymen out there. This here is the mouse. This is the mouse. You move that around. This here is the mouse tail. This will send all the main mouse information to the main mouse hutch in here, where most of the mouse equipment is kept with the other mice. It's all in the... This is your main mouse area, essentially, right here.
I'm getting a little worried that you really don't know much about Windows 95.
No. I'll show you. See, what I really like is that everything you need to do, I can do right from the start button here. You see that? Look at that, Bill, huh? Boom, right there. You got start. Everything's here under the program menu. See, if I want to add new programs, just pop up to there. Boom, there you go. Programs right there. See, very, very simple.
Also on August 24th, Microsoft announces the availability of MSN, the Microsoft Network. MSN includes full internet access and offers a variety of content, communities, and services from more than 200 companies and 100 content experts. And all the hype pays off. Just 5 days later, on August 29th, Microsoft estimates that more than 1 million copies of Windows 95 were purchased by customers at retail stores during the first 4 days of the release. But Microsoft isn't ready to stop innovating. On September 18th, Sidewinder 3D Pro, a digital optical joystick, is announced. And then 2 days later, the Chinese State Bureau of Technology Supervision and the Chinese Ministry of Electronics Industry signed an agreement with Microsoft to standardize the Chinese version of Windows 95 as the software development standard for the People's Republic of China. And sales incentives abound when on October 2nd, Microsoft offers more than 30 titles of its family of home software products for under $50 each. On October 2nd, Microsoft announces the Microsoft Mastering Series. It's designed to jumpstart developer expertise in creating Windows-based solutions with the full line of Microsoft tools. As of October 17th, Microsoft estimates that 7 million units of Windows 95 have been purchased worldwide since the product's release on August 24th. And the approach of winter doesn't slow Microsoft down at all. MSN, the Microsoft Network online service, enrolls more than 525,000 members in its first 3 months of service. With the majority of members using MSN's full internet access, this makes MSN one of the largest internet service providers. And Bill Gates authors his first book, The Road Ahead. The book looks at how new technologies will guide the way we work, play, and live in the future.
One of the key propositions in the book is that this will be a more evolutionary process than many people have suggested. That is, the PC will continue to get better, the internet will have more and more cool content on it, people will be connecting up at higher speeds through ISDN and PC cable modems. And so those are here and now things that companies are going after, and there's a real business case for them. The ultimate, where you connect up all the video devices, or as we say, information appliances in the book, will take quite some time. I still believe that within a decade, pretty much that ultimate vision will be available to a lot of people around the world. Well, the internet is evolving at quite an incredible pace, and it's really fantastic, because any weakness you can come up with in the internet, you can say there's dozens of companies that have been started up to try and get rid of that weakness and turn it into a strength. And so the internet is at critical mass. It's a phenomenon like the original IBM PC that grew to be a very, very central standard. So the eventual highway will evolve out of the internet. So depending on how you're using your terminology, you can say that the internet will become the highway. Now, there'll be some very qualitative changes between now and then. The variety of devices that are hooked up, the kind of material that are out there in terms of audio and video, the breadth of material, the ease of interfacing with it, the idea of agents helping to find things, the idea of user customizability, the idea of security and directories and transactions. All of those things will have to come into play. So the highway and the internet are tied up together, and the internet is a key reason why the highway will happen. But it won't look like what we have today when it all comes together.
And before the year ends, Microsoft releases the final version of Internet Explorer 2 for Windows 95 on November 27th. And finally, on December 14th, the company makes a major media move when Microsoft and NBC enter into a 50-50 partnership to create two new businesses, a 24-hour news and information channel, later known as MSNBC, and an interactive online news service distributed to the Microsoft network.
This is NBC News at Sunrise. This is with Ann Coe, with Bryant Gumbel, and Katie Curran.
From NBC News, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Dateline with Jane Pauley and Stone Phillips. This is Meet the Press with Tim Russert.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President and Chief Executive Officer of NBC, Bob Wright.
I would also like to say a special good evening to Bill Gates, the founder and CEO of Microsoft, who is live in Hong Kong in our NBC News studio. And Bill, welcome to this wonderful event. But this is truly one of the most exciting things I have ever been involved in, and we're at the very, very beginning, which really makes it a powerful message for all of us at NBC and Microsoft. Today, NBC and Microsoft, leaders in news and technology, are coming together to create news for the next millennium. As you will see today, our plans are long in specifics and represent a unique combination of content, technology, and distribution. Bill?
I think one of the great things that is illustrated here is this world of new media will require some unique partnerships, and we're very excited to be working with NBC. Over the last 6 months, we've been impressed with the depth of news capability that NBC has in its various operations, and those will all be brought to bear on the two new ventures that we're announcing here.
What you see behind me are C-130s that are tuning up and getting ready to lift off for Tuzla, lifting off elements of the 1st Armored Division, of course. We already have people on the ground for that very important story that will draw the attention of the world over the next year or so. And I think that this story, more than any other going on right now, represents both the frustration that we feel and the enormous potential in this business. You know, for the last 10 years or so, we've been able to demonstrate anywhere in the world when a big story happens, we can quickly move in technology and people and get that story on the air. The problem has been, of course, that we only have the 2 hours of today and 30 minutes of nightly news and NBC Dateline in which to put that. Now with a 24-hour news channel, it'll be much more exciting, much more gratifying for us and for the viewers, I think. Some things will not change, of course. When a big story breaks in a hostile place like this, the working stiffs will still be out in the elements and the executives will still be in the temperature-controlled studios. Bill, you and I have been talking about this informally, conceptually, for some time now, and this is a very impressive undertaking that we're about to jointly engage in, but it's really just the beginning, isn't it, of an extraordinary expansion of this universe of communication and information.
Yeah, there's still a lot to learn, and one of the wonderful things about the Interactive is that we'll be getting feedback from the users every day to help us make it better and better.
It seems to me, Bill, that one of our big challenges, both you at Microsoft and those of us at NBC News, will be to shape and to give form and to give definition, if you will, to all that news and information and communication that's out there in that vast cyberspace.
Yeah, the idea of seeing the important news and having it edited for you, and yet being able to find the things that you've got a particular interest in, balancing those is one of the areas where we're going to have to break new ground.
Bill, getting back to another discussion that we've had over the years, now that we're formally partners, can we send you a television set so that you can use one on a regular basis?
I promise I'll watch it.
And while Windows 95 was the big Microsoft news story of the year, the bigger story was the way it affected Microsoft's bottom line. The 1995 fiscal year-end sales total was more than $5 billion, while the employee headcount reached a towering 17,801 people. But now that Windows 95 was out, how would Microsoft stay dominant in the war for web supremacy? The year is 1996. President Clinton beats Bob Dole to continue his second term in office. Charles and Diana, the Prince and Princess of Wales, are formally divorced, and online auction site eBay is founded. 1996 also saw more expansion for Microsoft, as subsidiaries were launched in Kenya, Romania, Croatia, and the Ivory Coast, and sales offices were established in both Vietnam and Egypt. On January 16th, Microsoft grew even larger, acquiring Vermeer Technologies. Vermeer's flagship software application, FrontPage, is a tool for easily creating and managing web documents without programming. Less than a month later, on February 6th, Microsoft names Mattel USO President and COO Jill Barrett to its board of directors. Now, Barrett is the first woman named to the Microsoft board of directors since Portia Isaacson served in '86 and 1987. In mid-February, the Interactive Media Division is created. It consists of MSN, the MSN online service games and kids titles, and the information businesses from the now-dissolved Consumer Division. The new division will focus on creating and marketing worldwide interactive entertainment and information products across a variety of media, including the Internet.
They come from another world to destroy us from our own oceans. And as the battle to rule Earth rages, not in our skies, but in our seas, only one person can save us from drowning.
Now, days later, on February 20th, the Platforms Group is aligned to more closely coordinate the Microsoft Windows family strategy and to concentrate on developing complementary products and technologies for the Internet. In early March, Microsoft announces point-to-point tunneling protocol. PPTP is a new networking technology that supports multi-protocol virtual private networks. 2 days after that, on March 6th, Microsoft Internet Explorer version 2.0 for Windows 95 is made available in 22 languages, bringing Microsoft's web browser to the largest international audience of any Internet client software. The following week, on March 12th, Microsoft and America Online form a partnership. AOL integrates Internet Explorer into its client software for Windows 95, Windows 3.1, and Macintosh. In return, Microsoft gives users of Windows 95 easy access to the America Online service via a folder on the Windows 95 desktop. March 25th marks a milestone in the history of MSN. By that date, MSN has enrolled more than 1 million members in more than 190 countries in its first 7 months of service. This makes MSN the fastest starting Internet online service in history. On April 2nd, Exchange Server is made available. It's the first integrated messaging and groupware server designed to provide users and system administrators with native, open, and secure access to the Internet. Microsoft's products continued to become part of the national lexicon on April 5th, when cartoonist Gary Trudeau drops the Microsoft Encarta name in a Doonesbury strip. Now, this mention provides free publicity for the product, while at the same time signaling success for Encarta in becoming the first name that comes to mind when people think of an online encyclopedia. On April 17th, as part of 1996's National Library Week, Bill Gates hosts an online chat on MSN to celebrate the cyber launch of Libraries Online. This will eventually morph into one of the cornerstone programs of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. June and July bring Microsoft a group of interesting launches and acquisitions. On June 11th, Microsoft acquires eShop, a leader in internet commerce software technology. It's known for its internet shopping mall, eShop Plaza. The company is also the developer of eShop Technology, the leading merchandising and shopping system that merchants use to build online commerce operations. On June 16th, Microsoft acquires Electric Gravity, creator of the Internet Gaming Zone, or IGZ, a spot for playing games using the internet. IGZ features classic games such as bridge, chess, and checkers, with logins currently registering at more than 30,000 each week. Also in late June, Slate, an interactive magazine of politics, culture, and public policy, edited by Michael Kinsley, goes live on the internet. But most notably, on July 15th, Microsoft launches MSNBC, the 24-hour news, talk, and information network from NBC News and Microsoft. On the same day, Microsoft and KO Infosystems Company reach an agreement. Microsoft will award KO a 3-year contract to produce the majority of its packaged products for the North American market. And as part of the agreement, KO will purchase and operate Microsoft's Canyon Park production facility in Bothell, Washington, and offer employment to all of the facility's 400-plus manufacturing employees. On July 22nd, Microsoft promotes Jeff Rakes to Group Vice President, Sales and Marketing. In his new position, Rakes becomes a member of Bill Gates' Office of the President. And on the last day of July, Microsoft Windows NT Workstation version 4.0 is released to manufacturing. It combines the ease of use of the Windows 95 operating system with the reliability and security of Windows NT. In August, Microsoft and VeriSign Inc. announced that the first technology to allow secure downloading of the software over the internet is now available. The following month, on September 16th, Microsoft presents Windows CE, formerly known by the code name Pegasus. CE is an open, scalable Windows operating system platform for a broad range of communications, entertainment, and mobile computing devices. October is marked by 3 Microsoft events. First, on October 10th, a new web-based version of the Microsoft Network debuts. Then, on October 22nd, Microsoft Expedia, a free, comprehensive, user-friendly travel service, debuts on the World Wide Web. Expedia marks Microsoft Corporation's entry as the first major technology player in the online travel services arena. Finally, on October 29th, a somber note, as Patty Stonecipher resigns from her position as Senior Vice President of the Interactive Media Division. Stonecipher is credited with building Microsoft's position as the world's leading consumer and interactive media company. As the leaves begin to fall in November, Microsoft Flight Simulator for Windows 95 releases, marking the first time in its 14-year history that the product is available on the Windows platform. Days later, on November 12th, Microsoft's Board of Directors approves a 2-for-1 stock split. Shareholders will receive 1 additional share for every share held on the record date of November 22nd, 1996. And as the year draws to a close, the top-grossing movies of the year include Independence Day, Jerry Maguire, Twister, and Mission Impossible. But before the year ends, 2 separate but equally important Microsoft events occur. On December 3rd, the Executive Committee replaces the Office of the President as the most senior management team at the company. And secondly, Microsoft announces SQL Server sales have increased by over 100% compared to last year, bringing the total number of users to more than 2 million. This contributes to Microsoft's 1996 fiscal year-end sales totaling over $8,671 million, and an employee headcount that now totals more than 20,000 people. 96 has come to an end, but 1997 promises 2 giant releases from Microsoft and an acquisition that will become one of the best-known components of the Microsoft network. The year is 1997. Princess Diana is killed in a car crash in Paris. Her funeral at Westminster Abbey is watched on television by over 1 billion people worldwide. The domain Google.com is registered, and Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the first book in the Harry Potter series, is published, launching a worldwide phenomenon. But 1997 didn't just see big releases in the world of publishing. Microsoft ushered in the new year with the January 16th release of Office 97, the new version of the world's best-selling productivity suite.
following month, on February 7th, Microsoft unveils its Actimates early learning system. Now, this system is a combination of products that work with the personal computer or the VCR. Microsoft, through a licensing agreement with the Lions Group, presents Purple Dinosaur Barney as the first Actimates interactive character. Weeks later, on February 24th, Microsoft's 1994 purchase of Softimage pays off when DreamWorks SKG uses Softimage 3D, Softimage Eddie, and Mental Ray to create its new film project, Shrek. Driven by DreamWorks co-founder Jeffrey Katzenberg, Shreks will be a milestone production in content creation and the first full-length computer-generated film to use motion capture as its primary tool for character animation. On March 18th, several leading software vendors and content providers announced their intent to support Microsoft Dynamic HTML in future products and websites. Microsoft kicks off the spring with two interesting news items. On April 3rd, the Seattle Sidewalk City Guide, which is published by Microsoft, becomes available for free on the World Wide Web and as a featured offering on MSN. And 3 days later, Microsoft signs an agreement to acquire Web TV Networks for approximately $425 million in stock and cash. Web TV offers a complete system that provides consumers access to the internet via television. But this won't be Microsoft's only big investment. 2 months later, on June 9th, Microsoft invests $1 billion in Comcast, the nation's fourth largest cable television operator. The $1 billion cash investment will enhance Comcast's deployment of high-speed data and video services via its cable delivery network. Weeks later, Microsoft's recently purchased Internet Gaming Zone hits several milestones when the May membership figures come out. A record 275,000 members have signed up to play over the free gaming site, and more than 1 million game sessions were initiated during May. Now, these figures make the site one of the largest gaming communities on the internet. At the peak of the summer on July 7th, Microsoft announces the immediate availability of Microsoft Site Server. Site Server is a comprehensive website environment for enhancing, deploying, and managing rich intranet and internet websites. As 1997 edges towards the fall, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates lay out a broad product and technology development agreement between Apple and Microsoft. The agreement, which is reached on August 6th, includes the production of future versions of Office, Internet Explorer, and other Microsoft tools for the Macintosh.
Another big issue, and I think for a lot of the people here, is the mixed environment. Mixed can mean a lot of things. It can mean various versions of Windows mixed together. It certainly means mixing in a Macintosh platform with the Windows machines. One of the things we've tried to do is make NT Server capable of connecting up to all of these systems in a great way. We build into NT Server the specific code we've written to reach out and being able to connect up to the Macintosh. And that's a piece of code where we're constantly getting input on what should we be doing that's new there. And because our belief in supporting the mixed environments, that's an area where we'll continue to add features. Now, the mixed environment, there are many things that can be done to help with that. Having common tools that run across the different environments makes sense, and having a high level of cooperation between the vendors of those environments. We think that's quite valuable. The vendors should pick which things they want to have be interoperable and are not going to be different as a basis of separation, and then pick a few other things like the user interface that will be separate, and each will do their best to create the strongest environment. Now, in that spirit of interoperation, we were very pleased a few months ago to reach a pretty major agreement with Apple to work together on a lot of things, extending some cooperations that had broken down in the past, but that we thought were very important, and adding some new things as well. One of the things we've always had is a dedicated team focused on our Macintosh browser work. The Internet Explorer group for the Macintosh is actually down in this area. It makes it easier for them to work closely with Apple. And they don't just take the approach of porting the code across. They do take advantage of some of the Windows code, but they also do special work to take advantage of the unique Macintosh environment. And so we're very pleased to be working with Apple including supporting unique things. We're working out on how we can support the color management on the Mac platform and be the first browser to do that very well. With Microsoft Office, the last release we did there didn't do a great job of taking advantage of the Macintosh. And so now we're hard at work on a release that is in beta testing. In fact, we showed it at the last Macworld and got a very good response to that. And we'll have that out before the end of this year. It'll certainly reverse any notion that we're not tuning and doing a really first-class job of the Office environment on the Macintosh platform. You know, it's interesting to remember that our graphical applications really got their start on the Macintosh. It was a very risky bet that we made back in the early 80s to say that we would divert our development resources away from character mode applications and focused on the Macintosh. And in fact, during the development of the Macintosh, we actually had more people doing Mac applications than Apple had working on the Mac itself. And that was a period of great collaboration. And it's great to see with the new agreement and even with an investment included as part of that, some of that spirit of collaboration coming back into the work between the two companies.
Later that fall, on September 30th, Microsoft's Internet Explorer 4.0 is released to critical acclaim and enormous customer demand. As the year winds down, Microsoft finds itself getting high marks from the public. On November 25th, pollsters Hart and Teeter find that Microsoft is the most admired company in one of the most admired industries in America. On the final day of 1997, Microsoft announces it has acquired Hotmail, the award-winning free web-based email service. The December 31st purchase is a major milestone for the company, as Hotmail will become an important component of the Microsoft network that Microsoft offers free to all Internet users. There were many memorable moments in 1997, like NASA's Pathfinder craft touching down on Martian soil, the coining of the term weblog, and the debut of several long-running TV shows, including Ally McBeal, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and South Park. But 1997 was especially memorable for Microsoft, as the year-end sales total swelled to a jaw-dropping $11,360 million, while the employee headcount expanded to more than 22,000 people. Still, while things for Microsoft are rosy on the economic front, 1998 will bring controversy and an antitrust suit against the corporation.
The year is 1998. The FBI announces the creation of a major unit to fight cybercrimes, from hackers stealing money to terrorists trying to shut down urban power grids. Legendary singer Frank Sinatra dies of a heart attack at age 82, and Titanic becomes the highest-grossing film of all time, earning more than $580 million domestically. Microsoft also made record profits in 1998 and launched official subsidiaries in India and El Salvador, as well as Microsoft Arabia. Early in the new year, on January 26th, Microsoft announces that it will add 2 new Actimates learning system characters to its product lineup. Mark Brown's Arthur and Arthur's little sister DW will be introduced at Toy Fair in New York on February 9th. They join Preschool Barney, who debuted last year as the first Actimates plush character. Now, on the same day, Microsoft Corporation's board of directors approves a 2-for-1 split of its common shares. Shareholders will receive 1 additional common share held on the record date of February 6, 1998. In the summer, on May 8th, Microsoft adapts to the debut of the euro, when the corporation announces plans to support the euro currency symbol in the Windows operating system's family. Shortly after, on May 18th, Microsoft receives some bad news. The U.S. Justice Department and 20 state attorney generals file an antitrust suit against Microsoft, charging the company with abusing its market power to thwart competition.
The high technology revolution of the past 2 decades is one of America's greatest success stories.
Holding up the release of a major software innovation, such as Windows 98, would be like telling General Motors they cannot come out with new cars this fall, or telling Paramount they can't come out with any new movies on July 4th, are telling Wall Street they can't issue any new stock.
Despite the bad news, life goes on for the company, and on June 23rd, Microsoft TerraServer, the world's largest database on the web, becomes available. The site contains more than 1 trillion bytes of compressed aerial and satellite Earth photos that constitute the world's largest and most detailed atlas. Co-creators of the site are Compaq Computer Corp., the U.S. Geological Survey, and Aerial Images, Inc. 2 days later, Windows 98 is made available in more than 40 countries worldwide and from more than 12,000 retail outlets in North America.
One is that by supporting the latest internet standards like HTML, we're able to make using the computer simpler for people. For example, I can now click on icons, and you'll see on the left part of the screen this HTML-based information that provides, it's a little program called the magnifier, and when I launch it, what you're going to see is that the My Computer icon is going to drop down. And what you'll see in the top pane now is that we actually are able to magnify the screen, and specifically everywhere I move the mouse. So as I move to My Computer, as you can see, it's much easier to read the text on that screen, and I can increase or decrease the magnification as I desire. But I just want to show you the degree to which you can actually customize the desktop. Okay, the last two things I want to show you. One is support for a new media format called a digital versatile disc, or DVD for short. It looks very much like a CD-ROM. I actually have one installed here in the computer, and I just want to give you a feel for what this new media format will do again for users in terms of providing greater storage and higher fidelity of information. And so this is actually television that we're broadcasting here in New York. And I can actually come up and use now the power of software to do a number of things. For example, I can pull up the electronic programming guide. We are very excited about Windows 98. It's going to be a fantastic thing for consumers. It's going to run the things that people run today easier, faster, and more reliable. But beyond that, Windows 98, in partnership with many of the folks here who are building software and hardware, is going to unlock a whole new range of hardware devices and entertainment capabilities.
2 weeks later, on July 21st, Bill Gates appoints Steve Ballmer president of Microsoft. Days after Ballmer's promotion, Microsoft and a group of leading African-American scholars begin to collaborate on Microsoft Encarta Africana, a comprehensive multimedia reference resource on the history, geography, and culture of Africa and people of African descent. On August 6th, Microsoft President Steve Ballmer announces the establishment of a new Microsoft campus in Mountain View, California. It's created to better meet the needs of Silicon Valley developers and customers, and to centralize the location of nearly 800 employees who currently work at various sites throughout the valley. 2 months later, Microsoft introduces its first telephone, the Microsoft Cordless Phone System. This phone uses the power of the PC to deliver unprecedented flexibility and ease for customizing call management and message services. Microsoft Call Manager software also performs a variety of call management functions. The cordless phone system will retail for an estimated price of $199.95. Later that month, on October 16th, the antitrust trial against Microsoft begins in Washington, D.C. The opening statements are made by the Justice Department's lead attorneys.
It appears tonight that the showdown is near between state and federal governments and the computer software giant Microsoft. The big question, will Microsoft be allowed to ship its new operating system, Windows 98, as is with the Internet accessories?
With the trial underway, Microsoft announces the next major release of the Windows NT line of products, Windows 2000. The name change signals the evolution of Windows NT technology into mainstream use in November. Microsoft SQL Server version 7.0 is launched at Comdex and receives PC Week's Best of Show and Best Productivity Software Awards.
All customers want reliability in their data. You know, when you have data for your business, it's like putting that data in that file cabinet and locking it. It's a fireproof, it's behind the safe, it's that important. And SQL Server has to provide that kind of reliability and security for customers. But we wanted to do it in a way that would enable a new generation of applications. We designed SQL Server so that it would be easy for customers to buy an application, install it, and not have to worry that there's this sophisticated piece of technology running underneath that's worrying about their data and taking care of it for them. The things customers were absolutely telling us they wanted in SQL Server 7 was scalability. We took that to heart. It was a fundamental design point early on that we wanted to design the data structures so that we could scale to very large databases, 1 terabyte and above. I believe we proved that with the TerraServer during the development process. We built a 1 terabyte database early on in the research lab in California, went out and worked with the U.S. government and the Russians to get some space satellite images We put those down and ran that database throughout our development cycle and then got it up on the web. And it's been a great runner and taken well over 1 billion hits so far. So not only did it help us as a design point to have a customer when you were designing 1 terabyte and beyond scalability, but it also was a real-world test. Nobody had thought about ease of use in a database product. Database product was a big macho thing. It had to be something that was really kind of a black box, kind of a technology for only a few.
Everybody has such a passion to deliver, and it's not just a passion to just get this product out the door. It's a passion to really deliver the best product for the customer, and it's like none other. It's fabulous. I love it.
Microsoft SQL Server 7.0.
Microsoft hits one final milestone on December 7th when Microsoft Project passes the 3 millionth customer mark. Now this helps the corporation reach a 1998 fiscal year-end sales totaling of $14,480 million, while the employee headcount now grows to more than 27,000 people. 1998 has been another wildly profitable year for Microsoft, but 1999 will bring even more growth and a resolution to the antitrust trial. The year is 1999. Boris Yeltsin resigns as president of Russia, leaving Prime Minister Vladimir Putin as the acting president. 2 Colorado students go on a shooting spree in Columbine High School, killing 15, including themselves, and the release of The Matrix dramatically raises the bar for special effects. In 1999, Microsoft also raised the bar on its international presence, launching subsidiaries in Bulgaria, Jamaica, Tunisia, and Bolivia, and established sales offices in Kuwait and Lebanon. Mere days after the new year, on January 6th, Tinky Winky, Dipsy, Lala, and Poe say hello to Microsoft. That's right, Microsoft is awarded the license to produce Actimate's interactive Teletubbies, based on the international children's phenomenon. The Actimate Teletubbies are the first interactive toys created for children age 1 and up. The toys interact with kids by responding to touch through a series of sensors. March 18th turns out to be yet another big day for Microsoft. On that date, Internet Explorer 5.0 is introduced by Bill Gates at a launch event on the Microsoft campus in Redmond. By the following week, more than 1 million downloads of the new version have taken place. On March 24th, Microsoft's founder gets literary when Bill Gates releases his latest book, Business at the Speed of Thought, published by Warner Books. That summer on June 7th, Steve Ballmer officially launches Office 2000, a key element of the company's vision of knowledge workers without limits.
This is, I think, a very significant event, not only for the Office product line, but really, and for reasons that I think will be clear as I get into it, but a very significant event for the PC industry in a variety of ways. I mean, if you take a look at some of the fundamental technology innovations in the product and some of the new user scenarios, particularly focusing in on the way the Office product and the Internet grow together, I think you'll agree with me that we're at the start of the 3rd generation of tools for knowledge workers. And as it took 10 years for the 1st generation to develop fully, and as it was 10 years before the 2nd generation fully eclipsed the 1st, I think Office 2000 is just the start of this 3rd generation. And there'll be an Office 2000X and an Office 2000Y that will take even more steps towards fulfilling the vision of this 3rd generation of tool for knowledge workers that I'm going to talk about.
And 1 week later, on June 14th, Microsoft announces the product details of its client and server software for the television industry, the Microsoft TV Platform Adaptation Kit, or Microsoft TV Pack. TV Pack merges internet and television technologies to create new devices, services, and content to enhance the entertainment value and usefulness of television for consumers. On the same day, MSN Mobile, the newest addition to the MSN network of internet services, is made available. Consumers can now sign up to receive a host of wireless information services on their interactive pagers and cell phones. Gamers rejoice again on August 5th when Ashford's Call is scheduled for holiday release. Microsoft calls on all gamers attending the 32nd annual Gen Con Game Fair to be among the first to explore the expansive new world of Ashford's Call, an epic, massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Gen Con attendees will get to play the game months before its scheduled holiday release on the MSN Gaming Zone. Also on display at the Microsoft booth are Age of Empires 2 and Age of Kings, and Starlancer, an intense first-person space combat game. 1 month later, on September 13th, Microsoft announces Windows DNA 2000. DNA 2000 is a comprehensive integrated platform for building and operating state-of-the-art distributed web applications, as well as the next wave of internet-based web services. At the end of the fall, on November 2nd, 1999, Microsoft launches MSN eShop. eShop is a new shopping site built with the specific goal of helping consumers easily find, decide on, and buy products. The site is a full-featured shopping service that integrates with the MSN network.
All right, we need some stuff to cook with.
Oh, I totally got it.
MSN project, day 3.
Trust me.
Mike used a cool feature of MSN eShop to compare tons of different products side by side. He was so excited to find exactly what he was looking for.
They're gonna love me.
That's what we're gonna cook with.
Yes.
It's a total